everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We got the full usual crew here today. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. With me today, I have Josh Torres.
You're right. We're here to really talk about our favorite genre of video games.
Not RPGs.
More on that later. Yeah, Adam Vitale. Hello. James Galizio.
Role-playing as a character in a visual novel is an RPG, right?
Mm-hmm. And Xiaomin Wu.
Surely it is.
Yeah. We write for RPGsite.net. If you don't follow or have our website bookmarked or follow us on social media, you should. Normally we save all that stuff at the end of the podcast, but I know our podcasts get quite long, so I figured it can't hurt to throw that out at the start. We have a Discord. Go to RPGsite.net, hit the link at the top of the homepage, or go to discord.gg/RPGsite. You should find us there. But anyways, without further ado. Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, Twitter is as volatile as it's ever been. So we're on Facebook, we're on Threads. We've been on Instagram, but a little bit more hit and miss there. But yeah,
I'm sure once Blue Sky gets their OAuth implementation ready, which apparently should be done by like the fall or something, then I'm sure we'll be posting.
Yeah, we technically have a Blue Sky page, but it's there. It's dormant. It's sleeping.
It's ready. Well, I don't know about ready.
No, we also have a Twitch too, but there wasn't a video upload since 6 years ago.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we have our strengths and our weaknesses, maybe more weaknesses, but we have our podcast, so thanks for tuning in. If there's any part of the year that can count as a lull or a quiet period, this is the closest we have. We have a few people on, both on the staff contribution and on the podcast, that are working on things that are coming out or we want to talk about, but they're either still under embargo or we're not quite ready to discuss them on the podcast. Obviously, we do have a moderate amount of news as we do every week. So this might be a more news-focused podcast. We'll talk about a few things we've been playing. Some of those are RPGs, many of those are not. So it'll be a little bit of a different episode, but we'll go into it because we know that there's a lot of cross-talk in terms of what people are interested in. We'll spend time talking about visual novels or things like that. So we're not only purely on RPGs. We say it's our favorite genre, but we have to. We're obligated. So we'll be talking about a few different games here, and we have actually a handful of announcements of a lot of really fun indie projects that we'll be talking about this week. So before, when we were in this call, before we had hit the record button, we were asking like, well, what do we want to talk about? Well, we can't talk about this. I'm not ready to talk about that. The thing that we centered on first is that we're going to just start off with visual novels, because why not? We talked last week about some of the new updates with the I'm gonna mangle this, so I apologize, Josh, Chow, and James. The Fate anniversary, FGO, all that stuff where the news is coming out of, that I see the headlines for that I'm not aware of. I know that the big worldwide release of the Fate Stay Night remaster has launched, and it has launched with a lot of I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I should hand this off to someone that's a little bit more in tune with that, because I know we've had a few people here that have played the remaster, and all I know is that a lot of the issues were fixed, but it was hilarious and it was a fun time for at least a short time. So I'll hand it off to Josh. Fate Stay Night, it's remaster released on Steam, and it was a time. Let's talk about all of our time.
Steam. Yeah, it's out on Steam and Switch. So this has been a week of Fate kerfuffles, as I put it on the doc, and we'll get into the FGO stuff in a bit, because that's a little bit more complex. But the Fate Stay Night Remastered launched on Steam and Switch, and the Steam version was borked for a lot of English players for quite a few hours. So
to put it as bluntly as possible, it is like 100% confirmed they never tested on anything that wasn't a PC running a Japanese locale.
Yeah, so the Type Moon, Aniplex, and Fuzz, I believe, was the porting studio they collaborated with for the Steam port. Took us back to how people who read visual novels played them or read them back then, where they had to set their computer to Japanese locale to get them up and running. So this was the case with Fate Stay Night Remastered for quite a while, because if you tried to run Fate Stay Night Remastered on Steam under the English locale or anything else but Japanese locale, everything was basically a randomizer where there was like the wrong characters would show up at the wrong time at the wrong scene with the wrong dialogue I think that the dialogue was actually properly ordered, but it was like the wrong character showing up with the wrong background, with the wrong voice playing, obviously, because they showed up at the wrong time. So it was just basically, it was absolute chaos. It was just all over the place. You'll have a lot of Twitter, had a lot of fun with it, especially those that already know Fate, because like it led to a lot of very memeable images. Like for example, a character or model that doesn't show up till like the final Heaven's Field route showed up like as part of this and said, "Hey, it's me, Tosaka," and it's like totally not her, but it's really funny like in context. That you see this character and with that voice line and that dialogue, it's like, oh, that's funny. Or you have Archer showing up like in this break room.
And he's trying to make food for you.
Yeah, he's making
But
food for you with Sakura's voice because Sakura, like it cooks for you at some part of the visual novel, so he has those voice lines. But everyone's like, you know what? That's not out of character for Archer because of the way he's portrayed, like in other
It does
Fate
sound like a
media.
fun randomizer.
Yeah, yeah, and so it was broken, but in the most hilarious ways. And it did take for like it took several hours for them to properly finally fix it. So that's behind us, but in other archival torrent sites, people were able to archive this sort of fun time in history where Fate Stay Night would just totally work, and people, well, obviously, some people want to explore how broken it is and what kind of fun scenes they may find if they were able to like explore it for an indefinite amount of time.
So it seems like the reason why this happened was if you change the language, like whatever sort of like spreadsheet that points to which character portrait is supposed to be displayed at any time, if it's in any other language, that's basically pointing to just random images, random portraits in like the game files. So just pull somebody. So it only worked in Japanese.
Yeah, so like other Japanese locale, like for people who've done this before, like when you switch your whole systems to Japanese locale, you'll notice that like you'll see the yen image in your file paths, for example, instead of slashes. So yeah, so the way that they programmed it just totally borked that whole system of properly tracing where like who should show up at what time, pretty much at what dialogue stream. So that was that was a fun experience for everyone, especially in the social media era, where people just over the years, Fate has accumulated such a large fan base. So seeing like honestly, it kind of revitalized some of like the fresh energy. Because so many people already know like the Fate storyline. That it's like just seeing the ways that like things were randomized. It's like, oh, that's stupid and funny. So I'm glad it's fixed, but it's also funny that it happened the way it did. It was a funny disaster. Did you get to see any of that, Chow and James, on when this happened?
Oh, I
Yeah.
seen I seen some of it happen. It was freaking funny though.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite one is like they had all these memes where they're drawing like Shiro and Rin together sitting, and how they like just changed the image to that Tosaka at the end.
Oh yeah, I love the ones that like had other visual novel characters like just copied and pasted into like the Fate background. So like it randomized like this character from this visual novel showing. It's like, well, dude, my copy of Fate Stay Night looks different. It's like a totally different character from another different visual novel like showing up in it or something.
I feel like this bug actually did more good than harm. It's like it kind of it's become funny over years.
I mean, it's funny now because they got it fixed pretty fast. If it was still a problem, it would be bad. But thankfully, they got it, fixed out, by like 6 or 7 hours later. Still not ideal, but they were
Yeah, it's
able to
not
fix it.
ideal, but it's still kind of like added like some certain charm to it,
Yeah, I mean, it was also disheartening. Like when we were still like in that kind of that hour period of like, when are they gonna get around to fixing it? Because we don't know exactly how responsive they were going to be. Just right out of the gate, when the game released, even though it was like in a totally broken state for a lot of readers, it was still getting a lot of positive reviews, even though the game was in a totally broken state for much of the crowd. So it's just like one of those things. It's like, well, these reviews aren't really reflected on the actual release. It's just like they're fans of it, so they're going to give it a positive review, obviously. So it's I'm glad that it got fixed pretty fast.
But outside of I know you guys talked about how the issue was almost kind of like it brought it into like the zeitgeist. It made it vogue for even just that short couple hours where everyone was sharing kind of the goofiness of that. But now that that's behind us, like the remaster, now that it's functioning as intended, I don't know, just how do we feel about it? It still feels like, I know it was kind of surreal to see it. Expect the fact that we thought, a few years ago that this would never happen.
Well,
I'll go
well,
to James for this one
besides-
because
yeah.
I want to hear James's opinion on
So
that.
there's been kind of a meme in the like Fate community for the last couple of years about how Ignacio has been obsessed with a specific way of saying Saber's true name. That is like the one problem with the translation I've found so far. It's actually a really good official translation, and thank God.
Yeah, so just to provide context, people obviously it's been a long known, it's a long known spoiler. It's like knowing Aerith's fate in the original FF7, but like the real identity of Saber in Fate Stay Night is basically the female a female Arthur Pendragon, and her name is Artoria Pendragon. So there's definitely different readings and the ways that they localize it. So for example, the one time they actually got Artoria, Artoria, the most accepted or ones in the community that like that. That's like the most accepted name for her in the community. Um, the one time they got away with it officially was at the Fate Stella games, where Xseed somehow was able to convince Type Moon that hey, we're gonna have Artoria officially as her name in the Xstella games. But anything else in official Fate media, like in Fate Grand Order or like in merchandising, it's Altria, Altria. And Altria obviously doesn't really flow as well as Artoria for a lot of people. I myself included, I prefer Artoria over Altria, but it's been kind of accepted officially canonically at this point that Altria is her official English localized name. Which is, it's not great, but it's not it's not a make or break thing ever. It's like I'll put it like this, it's kind of like the G Gundam thing in the West, where the main Gundam in G Gundam is the God Gundam in Japan, but everywhere else, like in the West, it's called the Burning Gundam. Um, and because the God Gundam had it alludes to religious ties and ideologies, and back in the day, they would shy away from like anything that would allude to that. So even though we're past that point in culture where it's more acceptable now, in official Gundam merchandising in the West for G Gundam, it's still referred to as the Burning Gundam.
You know what that also reminds me of?
What?
In Trails in the Sky, Zane.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He was originally localized as Zane, the character, and then around the time when the third was coming out, Xseed was basically like, actually, Zane was never really quite correct. It should be Zin. So we're changing it, and we're retroactively updating the older games to change it. So
yeah, but at least they retroactively updated. This one is like
that's what I mean. That was a case of where they did
yeah.
change it. Like they didn't just stick, oh, he's Zane now.
Right.
So they went back and changed it.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other names that changed over time too. If you play the original PSP version of Trails in the Sky, there's a couple of names that are different. I think
the city was, instead of being called Hamel, it was called Hummel or something like that. I'm trying to remember what the city.
There's a few things.
But there's lots of changes, but I think the biggest thing is I think people complain about it. It's like, oh, it's like Eastern culture over there, and this spelling doesn't seem to line up. It's like
right. Yeah, makes sense. So like I mean, this was like not a 1-to-1 comparison, but Altria is like the more unpopular name for her, but it's the one that became canon in Type Moon's eyes. So it is, but
you could argue that Aerith is the same way. A lot of people really say like she'll always be Aerith to me or whatever.
Right, exactly.
She still is. I'm sorry.
So yeah, and like James was saying, like this. So here's the thing. I guess I'll set the stage here. Mirror Moon was the original like fan translators, like the first fan translation in the West for Fate Stay Night that really first established like the Western fandom of Fate. And there's a lot of comparisons, obviously, between the original script that they read, the fan translation way back when, and then the modern script now. That's like has a more professional, organized translation effort and team behind it. So it's definitely more faithful and more really captures like the spirit of Nasu's writing, a bit more accurately. But I think the thing that I don't like is like people are like retroactively putting down Mirror Moon's translation efforts because seeing that side to side, and I'm just to my mind I'm just like, you know, obviously there is definitely some faults in the way that they translated and localized it, but at the same time, we owe a lot to Mirror Moon for even putting down their foot on the ground and making and doing the first efforts of laying the foundation of like this fandom in the West, of like establishing this community in the West. So I think it's cool to see the comparisons, but I don't like the people putting down Mirror Moon's efforts. Uh, the like I guess unjustifiably. I
No, like
guess
how dare these group of fans in their free
Yeah.
time, not getting paid, with less context to work with, have translation quality with that's not absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Like for me, I like seeing the pros and cons of each, and but and in
You say
general,
that, and not to put down the fan translation,
Yeah.
but like from people I've seen that have gotten pretty far in translation, it's pretty consistent that this is just like a straight upgrade from the fan
Yeah.
translation.
Yeah, I think they did a really phenomenal job with the script overall. There's definitely some like weird like quirks, like the very first line of the VN is like I don't know if that's like the proper translation for it because it's like it's referring to Lancer's spear, but they call it a sword, and I'm like, but that's like just a very very minor quirk that like makes me I don't know. But other than that, yeah, but other than that, the localization script of like the new remaster, the official release is they did a really good job of like just capturing the like the fierceness, I guess, of some of these characters. Like Shiro has always been like this kind of very very loose with like very foul language, but they kind of I guess made him more reserved in the Mirror Moon, while in the official script, he fucking just he swears a lot. He's like fuck it. So it's kind of it's interesting to see like how they interpreted the characters in between each script, which is a very fun thing to point out.
I have a question
Uh,
for you.
yeah.
Did the anime came first, or did the Mirror Moon translation came first?
For like the original Dean. That's a good question.
Because if you watch the anime, he's kind of reserved, so maybe they were taking that approach.
Yeah, I
and
was actually gonna say
Actually, you're
like
right.
as watcher of the original anime, I don't
Yeah.
think he was pretty he was pretty kind and gentle and
Yeah, because
reserved.
in the original VM, he was definitely more like kind of rude about it.
he's always like
Uh,
complaining. But the thing is, like, if you go from like anime approach and you watch that, and you're probably like, oh, he's pretty reserved, and then you probably wrote that in mind. So I'm just asking, like, do you know if the anime comes first or the fan translation comes first?
I think the fan translation came first, then the Dean anime after. I want to say I'm gonna get like if you listener, if you know, then please correct me because I don't actually remember like the exact time the fan translation came out, but I think the fan translation came out first, then the anime. That's what I believe, and then I know a lot of people their first exposure to Fate, aside from the VN, is that anime, So and that anime was pretty important in terms of like also laying the foundation in the Seeds in the West. So the anime medium seems to be a lot more digestible for a lot of people than visual novel. Makes sense.
We also got an announcement. We kind of talked about this last week or the week ago about the Fate Extra Record, which is the remaster that it was announced back in 2020, but had gone dormant for a long while. We finally got a new trailer and an announcement that Fate Extra Record, I'm not sure exactly, is going to be launching next year for consoles and for PC. So remind us again. I know we probably talked about it, but sometimes it gets lost in the soup. What is Fate Extra? And it originally came out in 2010-ish, but now it's getting remastered, slated to release next year.
Yeah, so Fate Extra is a PSP game. It's totally separate from Fate Stay Night. It's totally separate from you don't need to have played Fate Stay Night to understand Fate Extra. It's a totally separate story, new characters, new everything pretty much. And um, it was a PSP turn-based RPG that had a pretty interesting combat system on paper, but in practice, very repetitive, is basically rock, paper, scissors in the original PSP game, where you would learn more about your opponent's moveset. It was like 1v1 battles, and you would learn more about their moveset by battling them out multiple times. And then once you see more and more of their moveset, you'll have the proper counter. So you'll know exactly if they're throwing out rock, paper, or scissors, pretty much, so you don't have the exact counter to it. Um, so and that game also got a sequel on the PSP called Fate Extra CCC, and that never got localized in the West. So
But a fan translation just came out like somewhere this year. Was it?
yeah, it was very recent. It was like it was either late last year or whatever. So it took a long time to get translated. Um, so Fate Extra Record is a remake of just the first game, not CCC, and they sort of showed this a little bit when they first unveiled it several years ago. But the battle system is still turn-based, but instead of rock, paper, scissors, it's more of like a card deck building game that looks a lot like Slay the Spire.
You know,
So
when from a couple of different directions, I had a few people commenting on this remastered version of this game or remake version of the game, and several different people actually mentioned, "Oh, it's Baten Kaitos now." I don't know if it actually is or if it just appears that way, but
they're not wrong, you know. Like I look at it more like a Slay the Spire because like the UI looks a lot like. But you know, but in terms of like deck building, card building RPG, like conceptually, yeah, Spotted Kaitos, for sure. There's the it's hard to say. They didn't really like go into that of like how you would be able to like customize your cards or like exactly what are like the character building mechanics behind it. But it's just like a nice like first look now of like, hey, we have a look at like the final version of the game, what it looks like, and several like the story scenes, some of the environments, so like the non-combat sections. Battles are no longer just 1v1. You'll be battling against multiple enemies, and it still retains that like nice self-shaded effect that they um showed off several years ago. So it's pretty exciting, you know. And this is a worldwide simultaneous release for PS5, PS4, Switch, and Steam. The interesting thing about this is it's now being published by Bandai Namco because when this was first unveiled, like the developers behind this are like a newly established studio called Type Moon Studio BB. Um, and for a while we thought they're just going to self-publish it because or Aniplex will, um, because it just seems like you know that seemed natural because their Type Moon already has strong ties to Aniplex, and Aniplex has the capability to publish globally. So I guess it's surprised seeing that like oh Bandai Namco is now involved with this project in terms of that aspect. I really wonder like what the business decisions were behind it because to me I thought it was just gonna be if it's not Type Moon Studio BB themselves, then it's gonna be Aniplex. So I really wonder what happened behind the scenes on you know that aspect of it.
it might have to do with like distribution or marketing. You know, just they think Bandai
Yeah.
Namco has got better reach and fingers in more places, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. So it's pretty exciting. You know, I'm definitely interested in seeing the final version, seeing more of this game. But it's just nice to see that hey, you know, it's been a long time since we heard from this game. But I think it makes sense because this was first revealed like in 2020, and that was a very very primitive version of the game. That was like, hey, we're working on this game, and like the first like gameplay they showed was like they had like a debug console and menu and like showing like the different blocks to teleport to like programming wise like in a live stream of it so it's still very very early in development, so it's nice to see that like you know they just been quietly working on it over the years and hopefully it turns out to be good. I think Fate Extra's story is interesting, but I think for a lot of people the gameplay really drags it down for them, so hopefully this remake kind of unifies that, like just make the story aspect like you know refine it but like don't drastically change it and just make the gameplay more compelling in it. And there's already like there already seems to be like some tweaks like they tease like a new character in this remake, so there are going to be some unknown elements in it. It's not a one-to-one remake.
I have one question. Do you remember the Ganishi character, the one that's voiced by Aoyuki, with the glasses?
Yeah, she's CCC. She's not in this one.
It's not an original? Okay. I
Yeah.
remember a lot of people keep talking about her, but then you like everyone hosts all these like videos like being subtitled, and you're like, is it from this game or that game? And this gets
No, it's
released.
CCC. Yeah.
Okay.
The one people are gonna most recognize, obviously, people already recognize all these characters from FGO if they've played that game. But but for Type Moon fans, they still have Arcuade from Tsukihime in this game because she's like an optional. She's not optional. She's a boss fight that you only encounter down one of the routes because there's like different routes in this game. So for one of the routes, she's like the boss fight in it because like two different berserkers. And she's one of the berserkers in it. So that's gonna be like the one for Type Moon fans, and they already confirmed that she'll be showing it. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's like I'm trying to think if I want to replay Fate Extra, the original PSP version.
I would
before
just wait
play
for the
this game.
remake at this point. It's like, oh yeah, we just announced there's a way better version of this game, so
I mean, I've played Fate Extra like 2 times. So I'm like, do I want to replay it just to refresh my memory? Even though it's not going to be a fun game to play.
this is like Adam replaying Romancing Saga Mistral Song right before like the remaster.
Okay,
comes out.
but like that has fun gameplay. Fate Extra doesn't. That's the thing. I'm really I'm debating willingly playing a game that I know has not great gameplay. I don't know. I'll think about it.
I mean, there's always a lot of games that I feel like I want to replay that I just don't have time for. And
Yeah.
even there, games that you played like 10 or 12 years ago where you're like, I probably won't like it as much if I replay it now. We also have the one comment here about Fate Go anniversary reception and apologies. Are the apologies related to the remastered edition issues, or are there
No.
additional
No,
apologies?
No.
That's just
no.
like
Okay.
There's a
just sheer
different.
greed. That's basically
Okay,
it.
so there's a different monster. Okay, so last time when we recorded, it was in the middle of the Fate Grand Order anniversary event in Japan. They have like this whole festival that lasts for like 2 days. People could come out, go experience attractions, buy merchandise, etc. And at the very end, when they conclude that, they concluded with a grand stage, main stage event, showing what's going to be all the new improvements and tweaks coming to Fate Grand Order, and like and like the what people really want to know is like who's going to be the anniversary character, because they always introduce like a new character for every anniversary, um, and they're usually very very good, and for a lot of people it's for fans as well. Like some existing character may get a new version that's maybe long overdue and whatnot. So at the first day of the event, they announced like the summer character as well. So it's different. The summer character and the anniversary character are 2 different characters. So they announced the summer character on the first day because of their upcoming summer event in Japan for that game. So they announced that CL from Tsukihime will be coming to Fate Grand Order over in Japan as the summer servant there. And then the one for the anniversary character is a new version of Ereshkigal, which has different moveset, different tweaks. There's a lot of system tweaks and interesting things about her, but it's getting way into the weeds. So just know that like these are the characters that they introduced and so forth. And I don't want to get too into the weeds about like what they do, because that'll just be it'll serve no one. But before they announced Ereshkigal as like the anniversary servant, they talk about system changes and improvements coming to the game itself, like game systems, mechanics wise. What are they doing? What are they improving, and so forth. So before I get into that, there are several things you need to know. In prior years, they introduced a system called servant coins and append skills. So servant coins are basically, you get them when you first obtain a character in the gacha, and you also gain this currency, these servant coins, when you raise the bond level of your character, like at bond level, like at certain like bond level
It's
thresholds.
very high. It's actually.
Okay, yeah. You basically need to like grind the game like almost nonstop, like for an absurd amount of hours to basically fully bond max level the bond of any single character.
I think there's
in
a
the
post
game.
on Reddit. They said that if you want to get to like level 12, it takes like a 1.5 years of playing or something like that with using that same roster all the time.
Yeah, but that's factoring into like that's natural stamina. That's not like using items that like refill your energy or stamina to keep on redoing the stage. So it's a long time and a lot of investment, pretty much to basically increase these bond levels. Not only for the servant coins, but also because they award you other freebies like the currency to go roll the gacha, as well as extra incentive to raise these bond levels. So these servant coins that you gain from the bond levels and the gacha, and they retroactively gave people this as well, but they added the system. They factored in already all your bond levels and all the times you rolled this character. They already gifted you all these servant coins before they when they retroactively. So there's it's not like it was bolted on, then you have to do it all from scratch again. So these servant coins are primarily used for this new system that they also put in at the same time called the pen skills. Pen skills are essentially passives that you can give your characters that'll further enhance their capability. And there are three append skills universally when they were first introduced. The first append skill for everyone is a flat attack damage up bonus. So like you just want to make their attacks more effective. You'll unlock the append skill using servant coins. So all three of these append skills are locked, and to unlock them, you need 120 servant coins to unlock them. And then once you unlock them, you spend in-game currency and materials to level them up to make them more effective. So the first append skill that you can choose to unlock, because it's like there's just full selection of 3, and then you can unlock as many as you have. You can unlock all of them if you have the appropriate amount of servant coins. But if you only have, like, say, 120, you can only unlock one of them until you get more servant coins from either duplicates from the gacha or from raising their bond. And I guess I should clear this up. Servant coins are a per character thing. It's not a universal currency. So let's say I have Altria, for example, and I want to get more servant coins for Altria. In order to get more servant coins for her, I need to either roll more duplicates or Altria or raise her bond level. And that is only, and her servant coins are only work for her append skills. It can work for no one else. Not even alternate versions like the summer version or the Santa version or whatever. Or only for like the base vanilla one. If I wanted to unlock append skills for like the Santa version or the summer version, I need to get servant coins for those versions of that character. Unique.
And so the summary in short is they call it NP8 or something like that, which means
that's getting too into the weeds right now. That's too far out. We're gonna get there. That's too far out already. So
I have to admit, I'm already sort of lost.
I know. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. That's why I'm trying not to like. So the basic summary so far is there are these 3 additional skills you can unlock using a currency that they added that can only be gotten from duplicates in the gacha when you roll them, or when you raise when you raise their bond level for it. That's the ways you get this coin currency from them, and you can unlock these 3 skills and you can level them up normally, pretty much. So the first one is that flat damage bonus. The second one is universally useful for everyone that a lot of characters want. Is basically they start off the battle with part of their super gauge or noble phantasm gauge already filled. So that's really, really good because a lot of the characters in this game want to fire off their super attacks because they're super powerful or super useful, just basically in farming this game, like making fights last a little bit shorter, pretty much. So that's almost universally useful for everyone because having part of their super gauge filled up means that they can use other skills to fill up their gauge to make them reach it like at round 1, pretty much. So second append skill, very, very good for everyone. Third one, it's very situational. It's very whatever. It's basically you deal more damage to a certain class of the game. It's very, very, very situational. Hardly anyone wants it, but there are completionists in the game that like say they really, really like say a person really, really, really likes Altria. They want their Altria in Fate Grand Order to be the very best that could she possibly be. So what will they do? They will level her up all the way to the first base cap level of 90. Then they will use other additional materials and resources in the game to get her all the way up to level 120. And that's already a shitload of fucking materials. I don't need to go detail what you need. It's a lot. On top of that, they will upgrade all of her base character skills, not the append skills, to level 10. That takes a lot of money, in-game money, and a lot of in-game materials. So maxing out her level, maxing out her skills. So what's next? To if you really want to like complete a character, quote unquote, complete a character, if you really want, because you really love them so much, you want to make sure her super is maxed out. Like you want to make her super skill, her super move, be the best it can be. So the way you raise the levels of the super is to roll multiple copies of her. So you want to roll at least or obtain 4 copies of Altria, at least to get to fully max it out to super level 5. So fully max out her level, fully max out her skills, fully max out her her super level. So now these append skills, a completionist would want to get like all these append skills and level them up all the way, and so forth. So you have to use all the servant coins that they obtained through other means to fully max them out. Okay, so that's the base level of this stuff. Before this new update, an addition that we're gonna detail. This is like the base, the original way to max out a character. So the big one that caused a huge shitstorm in Japan, in the Fate Grand Order community, was they were adding 2 new append skills for in the game, and they're both really, really, really fucking good. Especially one of them. The first one that they were gonna add is increasing critical hit damage. So all the characters that like are already or have heaviest hitters that could reliably crit a lot. You can make it so they do bigger fucking numbers and annihilate HP bars like nobody's business. The second one is useful for fucking everyone, like the super gauge being partially full. This one is big. Like in any RPG, this one allows you to reduce the cooldown of a skill. So like say there's a cooldown of 5 on a skill, it'll reduce it down to 4 for the first time you cast it. So that means that you're able to fire off that skill a turn faster, which will lead to shorter fights because you're not able to like loop your super skills that much more reliably, that much more quickly. So think about like any turn-based RPG and the way that they think about their turn economy and how you time your and the cooldowns of like your most useful skills in a turn-based RPG. Now imagine that most important button, its cooldown is now reduced by 1. Fucking awesome! It feels great. So, but when they first announced this in Japan, that would mean that they would need more servant coins to further unlock these append skills. Now think about the people who already maxed out their character, max level, max skills, max super level, and max original 3 append skills. Now, originally they would have to roll even more copies of that character to get more servant coins because there's also accounting for like that player already maxed out their bond level with that character, so they can no longer get servant coins from bond levels because they only go up to level 15. So originally people would have to basically get more duplicate copies of their favorite character to unlock these 2 append skills to even begin leveling them, and so forth. So that was a big fuck up, pretty much, because a lot of characters in Fate Grand Order are limited banners, so people would have to wait God knows how long till another banner of their favorite character shows up for the chance to roll multiple copies of them to get servant coins put into their pen skills. And especially if their favorite is a 5-star, you would have to think about the game's rates and how much money they would have to spend additionally to get more rolls, or how much they would have to spend to get more rolls, or save up to roll additional copies and so forth. And for people who have their favorites, like in free characters, like some like the Christmas events in the game, or like the summer events in the game that give you like a free 4-star character, those limited characters are fucked because there's no way to obtain additional copies of them normally, and there's no way to get more servant points for them if you already maxed out their bond level, pretty much. So those welfare characters were pretty much fucked from getting these append skills if they were already completed, pretty much.
Can
Like
I- can
everything
I
was
just-
already.
Can I just
Yeah.
say something? And I don't mean to be like an elitist or anything, but
Yeah.
thank fucking God I don't play gacha games. This sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it's just fate.
I
Trust
mean,
me.
I was thinking it, so yeah.
So
That's why I say that community is a cult. But this time, the whales are actually upset for once, and that's why there's a huge apology for once.
yeah, so I think it was a day after or 2 days after, there's like a huge uproar over this. Once people actually started mathing out and actually started digging into what the implications of having 2 new append skills, and both of them being super useful, especially one of them was universally useful, like what this would mean. So the first apology, there's 2 apologies. There's a part 1 and part 2 of this apology. Part 1 to this apology came like 1 or 2 days after, from the director of the game. Um, he acknowledged that people were dissatisfied with the change, and what he understood the implications of this. And I feel this is me editorializing, but I feel like him and the development team already knew of the consequences of what this would cause, and it was like the higher ups pressuring them to find new ways to monetize the game to implement this kind of change. But that's me editorializing. So
A lot of people had the same approach. They say during the live stream, he looked kind of like disheartened trying to talk about this thing, during the
yeah,
announcements.
he plays the game. So the first apology, it was basically a makeshift, okay, we acknowledge it, and here are the first things we're gonna do. The first thing they did was we're gonna add a feature so you can switch an unlocked appendant skill to unlock another one. So basically, if you wanna switch the anti-class append skill to the one that reduces cooldown, you can do that, but you'll lock out the anti-class append skill. You have to re-unlock it. You're basically doing a trade, pretty much. So you're still not fully completing a character if that's your aim is. You're just kind of a half step to it. And then the second one is this one's funny. There was another system in the game introduced before this whole new thing, this new append skills. There was another system added to this game called grail casting. Pretty much, if you had leftover servant coins or servant coins that you didn't want to use, you can basically throw them into this system, and you'll gain a holy grail out of it, which you can use to for other systems of the game, like further level uncaps for other characters, and so forth. So there was already a system in the game for if you have any spare servant coins that you don't need or you don't want, you can throw them into this, and you'll get this item. But they introduced this new one for that'll add that you need more servant coins for. So all those ones that you already used for grail casting originally weren't going to be compensated, but now they are going to be compensated as part of this first apology wave, and so forth. And then just recently, like maybe like 2 to 3 days later, after that second apology, they pretty much they got a lot of fire trucks on the scene, and they took down they quelled all the fire. They put down all the fire because of the second apology letter. They pretty much said, "Hey, we'll increase the amount of certain coins you'll get from certain bond levels, and we'll compensate you for all the coins that you would have gotten from this change." So like they're retroactively giving you coins based on the bonus amount of coins that like people are gonna get now. So now this allows people to have enough servant coins to fully unlock 3 skills, 3 append skills. You'll still need the additional duplicate servants if you want to unlock all of them. But if you're obviously not crazy and wanting to like complete a character, they'll at least give you the resources to now at least unlock 3 append skills of your choosing, and you'll be done with it. So this is like one of those things that they should have probably like told you about like at the anniversary, but then like they didn't fully think it out that the response would be this bad. So in short, the FGO Japanese community was in for a fucking roller coaster this week, and it also shows that like it just I'm used to the developers of this game being silent and just saying shut the fuck up and deal with it. I didn't think they would actually like go this
Apologize
far.
for once.
I didn't think they would go this far to apologize and actually like rectify it.
Look, this is the first time I even see our own Mobage channel that people always defend this game actually was in outrage for once, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's like they get what they fucking deserve. But
So it was a huge backlash. So they made amends. He was fucking insane. What they were asking for, they really backpedaled on a lot. Well, not backpedal, but like they introduced more stuff to like rectify it completely. Thankfully, so now people will continue happily spending and supporting this game. It's yeah, I know it's a lot to like understand and take
yeah, it's a
in
lot to sink
from
in, but
yeah.
let's just try to do like a Genshin comparison. That's like Constellation 8. It's like imagine how much money you had to spend to get that, and just like all the limitations, and you had to wait a year for your character to come back. It's like, man, it's like what were they thinking? Are they trying to like compete against like like all the other gachas that are like taking over the market share these days, and they're trying to like force them to pay up?
I don't know, man, but it definitely feels like one of those decisions. It's like, hey, higher ups said to make to find new ways to monetize this game. This game that's already breaking in fucking millions and possibly billions, and they wanted to make more money.
It's like, well, just make better games.
If there's like I said, if there's one positive thing to come out of like people spending a lot of money on Fate, is like we're getting
visual novels being localized. We're
yeah.
getting more animes being produced. We might even see like other works being adapted. So yeah, that's a good thing. But the bad things about it, you get like this company that is so greedy that they think it's like, oh, we make $1 billion a year. It's still not enough. Let's just up our greed and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, man.
yeah. It's that's it's kind of a lot, but I felt like it was worthy enough to like bring it up here because it was such an insane thing. Like that was behind the scenes probably the biggest news story going on in games that like people were like talking about, obviously in the West.
Is there anything else from Fate that is hiding between the announcement of or the issues of the remaster release, the announcements of the Fate Extra record, or the anniversary to the Fate Grand Order?
I don't think there's any more I could add
think
to it.
that's
I always
it,
hated
yeah.
this game. It's like the worst game I played in my life, and I'll stand by that fact. But I'll get murdered for saying that to a Fate fan. But speaking of which, it's like
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much like the highlights of it. Pretty much, it's an insane week for Fate, but I think it'll die down for a bit again until Hollow Ataraxia and Record are much closer.
Yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
remember from last week, Hollow Ataraxia Remaster was announced to also have a worldwide re-release
Yeah.
slated for next year.
So in the meantime, go enjoy reading Fate Stay Night Remastered and or Tsukihime. I mean, you have a lot of they're huge books, you know.
Well, for anyone who is still with us, 50 minutes in this podcast,
I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. Obviously, I see a lot of this discussion in our Discord channel, discord.gg/RPG site. I know that the series has had a lot of fans, old and new, over the last couple of years, largely due to the efforts of the worldwide releases and the remasters for games that were released to a much smaller audience back in like the 2010s. You do have a few other games listed here that are either released in this last week or have had like more of an open access for a pre-release in this last week. I don't know which order we want to talk about these. One of these is Mecha Break, and one of these is Revue Starlight El Dorado. I don't know much about either of these other than that the Mecha Break, I saw a link to the Steam player count for the recent open beta. A lot of people have been playing this, and the Revue Starlight game just had a release in the first week of August. So I'm not sure if this was Chow and Josh together or just one or the other
I barely got into the beta yesterday because they opened it like
for Mecha Break.
Yeah, for Mecha Break, because I think to get the beta keys, you had to be like part of these like Twitch drops or something like that. And
Yeah. The most people who so the Mecha Break period started like earlier this week for like people who either got lucky enough to they signed up for the playtest on their site and they're lucky to get in, or they were like partnered media or streamers that like did the Twitch drops, and so people could get in through the Twitch drops as well. So people could like watch a stream for like 15 minutes and get a key and get on. So I put about 13 hours of this game. I did it through the Twitch drops method, and it's been a blast. Primarily, at the moment, the PvP mode is available. The 6v6 PvP mode. I guess the full release they might have like some sort of PvE and like some battle royale mode in it, but I don't know too much about how they're gonna do those yet. So the 6v6 PvP mode, for people who don't know, Mecha Break is basically if you like giant robots, it is basically the 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 version of like Overwatch or Apex Legends. Well, not really Apex Legends.
I say it's more like Overwatch combined with like Armor Core, Gundam versus Gundam kind of thing.
I guess those are the easiest comparisons. And it's 6v6 of those of different like mech types facing off in different mission objectives. So one of the mission objectives will be like pushing a payload to the goal, and the other team also has a payload they're pushing as well. So it's like that dynamic of like, do you push or defend, or do you want to like harass them from like pushing their payload and so forth. There's another map objective of like capture the flag and holding like these bases. So basically, there's like points A, B, and C. You gain points for however many nodes you captured over time, and so forth. So you're basically doing this back and forth between the other team of like capturing and holding defend points, and so forth. And so the really cool thing about this game that's like every single robot in this game feels very very different from one another. So you have like the class that's like the Macross class, which is very very agile. You have this robot that can turn to a fighter jet, is armed with missiles, an auto gun, and you just have like free 3D movement. There's a lot of flight in this game. Every robot has like a boost gauge that they can use to like go faster. Um, and then there's like another mech that is like the supporter mech that they can like put energy shields on characters, be like the healing class. Also, I'm armed with a shotgun that can put down walls. Um, there's another character, it's like an assassin type class called Panther, it's like armed with a lance, and you can like charge up this lance charge to go like thrust towards another player and like kind of put them out of commission for a bit, like almost like a stun that does damage. And they can switch between like a sword and a shield to like follow up their assault, and then like to get away, they can like press a button to like refill their boost a little bit to kind of cover their escape. route and so forth. So it's it's very much just like a really great iteration of that hero class PvP style. The really cool thing about this game too is it has an in-depth paint customization system. It's almost like it's almost like Armored Core and Gundam Breaker, where you can actually individually paint every part of a mech different colors. So like you right as the head, torso, arms, legs, the backpack, and and there's like different parts about them that you can color separately. Since it's an open playtest, they want people to um unlock all the mechs and all the paint color schemes. So after you do like the first two tutorial missions, they'll just give you a bunch of like in-game currency to like basically unlock them. Because what I think is this is gonna release in a free to play format, and then like if you want to get like the currency to unlock new paint color schemes and mechs, then you have to like do like dailies and a battle pass and all that sort of formula in the full release and so forth. They also give you like crates um from doing challenges that like is basically kind of like a gotcha, not for the robots,
It's
but
like a
like for the
loot
paint
box of
colors.
like Overwatch
Mhm.
style.
But
I
it's
would
like for
say.
paint color schemes. It's not like you're
You're not
it's not
paying
like
to win.
anything. Yeah, it's not pay to win. Though there is an aspect of it that people are kind of concerned about that might be pay to win. There's this mod system in the game that you there's like a mod supply chest or crate. So like when you open it, you get like these mod adjustments that's like kind of like you can slot into robots. For example, like Falcon the Transformer mech, it might have a mod that's like plus 3% to energy ascent, but in return you it's like minus 5% like booster refill or something like that. And these mods come in rarities. There's like common, rare, and like epic, and like people or legendary. And so people are concerned that like if you can like min max your robot's performance through like stacking legendary mods for them, that can be an avenue of pay to win of like, hey, my robot performs better than yours because I have more legendary mods on it that emphasize like their play style. That they're able to min max their performance um based on like their play style or role based on these legendary mods. So it's one of those things that the community is sort of iffy on. Obviously, they're submitting feedback to the developers. There's a survey in the game saying, "Hey, what did you think about the game?" Pretty much, and it's like an open feedback form. So a lot of people want to emphasize like, please do not make this pay to win. Right now, it doesn't seem like pay to win based on how they're implemented, but there's obviously we don't know what the full release looks like in that aspect. Um, but a lot of people really praise it like based on like the feel of the game, like how they really nailed like the speed and giving each robot their identity unique identity and sort of and role and sort of that stuff. So it's been a ton of fun to play the same. It is. I also want to mention that there's also like an in-depth like pilot customization that like you barely see your pilot, right? You don't mainly see your mech,
You see it when
but
you die. It's like, well, not die, but when you lose your mech, you see your pilot being ejected out in the camera.
yeah. So, but the one thing that people will notice right away is that this game is it uses sex appeal.
Especially if you play the female pilot. It's like stellar blade camera angles, like right near the ass.
Well, so that's also for the men as well. So, like when you select your mech to deploy into a match, it shows a screen where your pilot is boarding the mech, and how it shows this is they go up to the platform and they face towards the mech, so they're facing away from you, and it zooms in on their ass as they walk towards the mech to like get to the cockpit of the mech, and it's really fucking funny. Because you can tweak your character's proportions to absurd degrees. Like you can give them like a huge ass, for example, men or women, for that. So you just see like a fat ass walking towards the mech to get in it.
This
Um,
podcast went places I wasn't expecting, but okay.
and then obviously, and then like you can tweak like the chest proportion as well. So for people making a female character, they can min max their bust size. So like when their mech when they fall down in battle, when like your mech explodes, they have like an eject sequence. So you see the character do like pull out a lever to eject from their robot. So like since the cockpit is shaking violently as their robot is about to explode, So if you put big boobs on your character, you'll see that thing fucking jiggle all the way around before they pull that lever to eject out. So there is an aspect of like obviously they're using sex appeal to use to further appeal and monetize their game. Even though it's mech centric focus, but for people who really want to see their character, there's an avenue of that as well, and people can make really really fucked up like human faces and different like hair colors, and you'll see like almost like Dark Souls level types of like monstrosities for some of the pilot models. Depending on like how fucked up the person is, I guess. So if you're depending on the when you listen to this podcast and the day, I've like the open period for this is very limited. It's like up until like the end of the weekend. But like the thing that kind of sucks about this open availability right now is like the people who got it from Twitch drops had way more time to play this game throughout the week, while the people who are only getting into this like in a fully open form only have like 2 to 3 days they can use to like spend in it. But but it'll give you like unlimited like there's like no downtime right now for like there's no like limited time slots or anything, so they can make an informed opinion from the get go before this game fully launches next year. And it's kind of interesting too. Like the developers are already taking feedback in terms of balancing because they had they had a balance pass for some of the more overtuned mechs in the game that they deployed from the Twitch drops availability to like the fully open period. So for me and my friends who like played a lot of this game, like each of us like has over like 12 to 13 hours played of this game. We already like kind of started to identify, hey, there are some overtuned mechs and balancing problems, and like to see some of that like getting addressed already is like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Like they're already taking in feedback and like testing out like these balance changes to see how the community will react to them and respond to them and so forth. So but not to say that's perfect yet, but it's getting there. I think the like Panther, for example, that assassin one, people felt it was way too overtuned, so they put some nerfs on that. There is like a very annoying sniper character in the game. There's two snipers. They're both very good, but one of them is very very annoying. Their name's Narukami, and they're a sniper that can cloak themselves. So it's basically a very good Narukami player will be pretty much invisible like throughout the entire game. So it's one of those types of like characters that's like it's not super broken in terms of like if you're able to like keep the pressure on a Narukami, it can't do much. But if you're letting Narukami play its game, it's very 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 irritating to go up against. So it's gonna be difficult seeing like what they intend to do with like the final version of this game. I hope it's successful though. I think it's a lot of fun. And earlier this morning, at the time of this recording, I was interested to see what the player base would look like now that it's available to the public, like openly. And
It's massive right
yeah,
now. I,
its all-time peak is like over 50,000 players as of earlier this morning.
I think this
Holy
is
shit!
kind of like the game I want from like a Gundam versus Gundam. Because the thing is, like when I play Gundam versus Gundam, it doesn't have like that speed and like the chaos that you get from the actual Gundam series, in my opinion. It's like they're
Yeah.
shooting funnels, and yet it feels like they're fighting with like crayons or something like that.
And yeah, it makes sense. It's a definitely different type of design philosophy style of game. It's not like, and obviously the battle arenas in Gundam vs. Gundam are very very isolated and small. While the in-game maps in Mecha Break are pretty expansive. Like there'll be like an open map and like you get on your fighter jet and it takes like a few minutes to like fully scope out the battlefield, even though you're going at a pretty high speed. But the things that this game does really well in that aspect is like that sound design. It really makes you feel like a badass of like metal on metal clang.
Oh yeah, the sound
Action.
effect is crazy. Oh, you hear
Yeah,
it. It's like
yeah, it's very crunchy, and especially when like you're turning on your thrusters, when like your fighter jet mode for Falcon and Sky Raider, like you'll hear like that sonic boom um sound when you turn on the thrusters, which is really really satisfying. It feels like you really really had that sense of speed, especially with Falcon. So it's been a lot of fun. I play The ones I've liked so far, Panther, the Assassin one. I haven't tried it out post nerf yet, but I think it won't be that bad. You just have to play it more intelligently. It was kind of brain dead and really fun to play as. Pinaka, which is like the healer support robot, is really fun. Falcon I really like because of that transforming aspect. Um, Vulcan is really fun too because it's like that big heavy brawler with like a big ass battle axe. But there's a really funny skill with Vulcan where it deploys like a cube around you, and so if you have like someone trying to like go up against you, you can actually trap them inside this cube with you. So like they're forced to like face you pretty much for a certain amount of seconds.
It's the Jujutsu Kaisen expansive dimension or whatever.
Yeah,
that
domain
shit's called.
expansion. Yeah, it's really funny. That is like one of the most hilarious buttons in the game to press. So that's fun. So like I hope it seems like a lot of people are having fun with this game, and I really hope that like when it fully releases, it has the legs to stay around and compete like Overwatch, Apex Legends, Counter Strike. Um,
I'm sure it'll do fine. It's not run by Bandai. So,
yeah. Hopefully, Star doesn't get Gundam Evolution. That's for sure. So
that
It's-
game
it-
started out pretty strong too. And
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
oh yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and then it's dead within a year, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Bandai Namco made a lot of bad monetization decisions in the structure of that game. That's what happened, and whether and something happened with the communications of that game, where like the devs stopped like communicating as much. Unfortunately, but they still did time to time, but not as much. But we'll see. Hopefully, this sets like more long term support than that game did. It has like, and the developers have more confidence with this game. Like even if this game goes through like a down period, hopefully that doesn't discourage the developers from like continuing to work on this game to make it better. I think it has the potential to really have a sustainable player base and active player base. But I'm really interested to see like what the PvE and the battle royale modes like look like in this game because they already nailed like I said, they already nailed like the control scheme and the feel of this game. It feels really nice to just like play this game. That's one of the most important aspects of it.
Oh, you imagine Blizzard now. It's like, oh, we didn't even bring, was it the story mode in Overwatch 2, and how the game changed back to 6v6, like, so it's Overwatch 1 then, right?
Yeah, I heard about them going back to C6. I don't know if there's I don't know what the story mode looks like this game. There's like some story opening cutscenes, but you don't really know like it's basically to teach you the controls of the game. So I don't really know if there's gonna be a story mode in this game. But yeah, that's kind of like my early impressions of Mecha Break. I put several hours to it. And I think it's damn fun. It's from the developers of Snowbreak Containment Zone.
Oh, so they probably got huge funding from that too. I heard that gacha game did pretty successful recently.
So here's the thing about Snowbreak Containment Zone. It released like it was okay at first, but then it had like its down period, and the way that the developers instilled like life
It was
into
for
it.
fan service.
Yeah, they went all in on fan service on that game, and it's been profiting a lot from like
Yeah, and then it went for
fan
like
service.
100% sex appeal, and then there was
Yeah.
some outrage with it because the voice actor, the English side, didn't want to like continue with voicing these kind of type of characters. I was like, okay, whatever. Then it's like we'll just stick with this. It's more profitable for us, anyways. And so
Yeah,
everyone's like, shit. It's like, wow.
There's a lot of shit behind the scenes on that one. So I can't claim to know the exact extent of how it all went down, but however, I mean, whatever makes
It's a
them.
thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. Whatever it takes to like continue supporting that game. It's some winners and some losers in that exchange. So
Snowbreak Containment Zone is literally described on Steam as a 3D waifu sci-fi RPG shooter.
Yep, it sure
Yeah.
is. It seems like they've been more leaning to the waifu aspect than any other aspect in that description so far. But yeah, so that's why I made a joke with my friends. It's like, what if like Mecha Break gets like things aren't looking good for Mecha Break, so they just start releasing like really sexy robots in this game.
Yep.
That's what they'll do.
Untapped market right there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's Mecha Break.
And the last thing we have before we get to news is the review Starlight Eldorado came out on August.
It came out at the same time as Fate Stay Night Remastered, and it released at a better
I
stick than
have a
Fate Stay
question.
Night.
I have a question
Uh-huh.
for you, Josh.
Yeah.
How much hours did you put in this game?
Review Starlight Eldorado.
Yeah.
So far, let me go check Steam. I put 4 hours into it, but it has a really interesting structure to it. So this has like a pretty massive uh, gateway off the top of like our barrier of entry rather from the get go because this is a direct sequel from the Revue Starlight movie, and that movie was a direct Starlight from the TV anime show.
Damn,
So
so there's a lot of catch up to do. You want to read it?
yeah, so if you want to get into this game, you kind of need to have knowledge. You need to have knowledge of the anime and the movie already because it won't hold your hand. Because
But the reason why I asked how much hours you put into it is because there was an ESRB rating from the Switch, and this game has like a mature rating, and Fate Night Stay got a teen rating. Yeah, so you got far enough to explain that.
I'll get into that. What I think it is, I don't know if it's exactly like if I'm right or not, but I'll get into that of why in a bit. So, Revue Starlight Eldorado is developed by Frontwing and published by Bushiroad, and it is it stars like these this academy that is specialized in creating stage plays. So the main cast are, their life is all about the stage. They're aspiring actors who just want to reach the top to become basically the best person they can be, best stage actor, best stage player. All of them crave, being the main character in a stage play, pretty much, and they kind of go through their trials and tribulations throughout the TV anime and the movie. And El Dorado is set as like their last event they can do in the academy before they all go their separate ways because they're about to graduate from the academy. So they have this exchange program where they collaborate with like this other overseas academy to go produce the stage play as a last hurrah before they all graduate and so forth. So the game is split up and 50% an intro in the sense that like the very beginning of the game introduces these two new original characters, but they're not part of the main cast in terms of like they're not stage play actors. They're the director and the script writer of this El Dorado stage play that they're about to perform. So you kind of gain insight of who they are, where they come from, and so forth. And then the rest of that intro is like a very brief recap of like who the stage play actors are, like the main characters of this Revue Starlight IP. And that's like the 15% of like the game, just in the introduction alone. So the main thing that branches is the middle part because after you see like the introductions and like of these like main characters for the stage play, they're basically auditioning to be either Alejandro or Salvatore from the El Dorado story. And just as a recap, Alejandro and Salvatore are basically these friends who swear to each other to go sail with each other to go find the golden city of El Dorado, and then circumstances that be Salvatore betrays the family of Alejandro to go gain his freedom away from them because and here's why the M rating might be in effect here is because at least in their rendition of the stage play in here, there are allusions of sexual abuse between of Salvatore and Alejandro's father, like because they like there's like a almost like a servant master relationship between them, where like Salvatore like owes a lot to this, and like part of like the servitude under this family is there's allusions to sexual abuse. It's never explicitly mentioned or shown, but it's heavily implied that there is. And that's kind of like the kind of like the darker side of the stage play. It's like not never overtly said to the players themselves. So, and I think that might come from the core story too. It's been a long time since I've like read like the core story of El Dorado. So, when you're picking who should be cast as Alejandro and who should be Salvatore, there's actually like 4 routes in the game where like you can choose like a different duo pairings who should take up each of the main characters' roles pretty much. And it is an interesting way to go about it because a lot of these pairings are like relationships that are not were never really explored in like the TV anime and the movie. Where like usually in those like there are certain characters that are always paired together, pretty much. They're kind of like the pairings in the cast. But in this one, it kind of forces both the characters and the players to step outside their comfort zone, and exploring new different relationships and sides to these characters based on on the route that you choose. So, like for example, um, Karen and Juna are two characters that like they definitely have interactions in the anime and the movie, but not so much like together alone for extensive amounts of time, because there's always other characters that they're paired off with that have like they have a deeper relationship with. Well, in this visual novel, they both in one of the routes they have the responsibilities of being casted as the two main characters, so they spend a lot of time together thinking about like where they come from, how they develop, and like what their plans are for the future after they graduate, and so forth. So you kind of have like this new dimension to these characters based on this like extended amounts of time being able to interact with each other, uh, just alone together. And the main kind of ripple throughout these routes is that there's a brand new character named Judy Knightley who comes from the exchange program overseas, and he or she, sorry, she takes on the role of Zulfikar, the assassin in the El Dorado story. So her voice actress is really really talented. I mean, everyone is in this game, and I'm gonna get into the voice acting part of this game, but I think it really does well. Um, she kind of crashes one of their rehearsals for El Dorado, and that's how you're first introduced to Judy. And they realize that her acting ability and her talent are like it outshines them so much that like they feel kind of devastated, but at the same time they feel driven by how thoroughly crushed they were with her debut to the cast. So they're like, we gotta really, 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 really step it up, and that's kind of the universal trigger moment in each of these routes for like they really gotta basically step up their acting game and and also tear down like the script of the game, or the script of the El Dorado stage play, and rebuild it so like these characters are more intense and more fierce to match um the extra amount of effort, the extra effort they're putting in to kind of get on Judy's level for this. So I'd say like 40%, 45% of the game is like in this middle section where they're like all doing the prep work for this El Dorado stage play and getting and Judy's introduction and so forth. And the remaining 40% of a route is the El Dorado stage play itself. So you see uh, people in their costumes reenacting the stage play of El Dorado, and so forth. So the really really fascinating thing about this game and how it captures is how it captures like the magic of a stage play, and how the same play can give off different feelings and atmospheres and tones just by having different actresses. Even if the same characters and the same script remains throughout each of these routes in the El Dorado stage play, like the same core, like obviously Zulfikar, Alejandro, Salvatore, Carmencita, Miguel. These existing characters in El Dorado still make an appearance, but they're all done by different actresses in each route. Um, and except Zulfikar. Zulfikar was always Judy. Um, the way that especially the two main characters, depending on the route, uh, have different interpretations of Alejandro and Salvatore. So in one route, like if Maya takes on Alejandro's role in a route, he sounds more innocent, more naive, while Karen's interpretation of Alejandro is more like mature, more diligent, um, more like just has that more upstandingness compared to Maya's Alejandro. So you really get to hear through the voice actresses like their own different interpretations of the character, despite playing the same character and reading the same script. They have they have different just characterizations for that character in their voice alone, and that's kind of like the magic of this visual novel, is being able to express that idea of how a stage play can be totally different depending on just like how different actresses interpret the character that they're playing. Um, and it's also interesting because the game itself, I'd say 95% of it is done through character dialogue and character interaction. There's very little narration and exposition given. It's like only the intro portion that where you'll see narration and exposition. The rest of it is all done through character dialogue and interaction. And it's as if, and it probably is the case, that the Revue Starlight real life crew uh, performed this as a stage play themselves. Because the Revue Starlight project is not just for animated films and TV anime and this visual novel. It's not just the anime characters, but there's a real life component where the actresses, the seiyus, the voice actresses themselves are stage actors for the characters they portray in Revue Starlight, and they actually do stage plays in real life and perform together for it. So it's like a really fascinating. Like,
I was just
IP.
about to say, actually, like, I hope these voice actresses actually have like stage training if this is
Yes.
what they're doing, and it
Yes,
sounds
they
like
do it
that's
for a
the case.
living. Yeah,
So
yeah. So they're all professional and all very talented and so like it's one of those things that like it is such a like it you can tell it has like a constrained budget, but what Front Wing did with this like visual novel, it's like a first initial playthrough of this like 2 hours, and then like and the subsequent routes you're gonna read. You take off the first 15%, and then like the middle is new because it has a lot of new interactions. And even though you have the same script being read in the last third through that El Dorado play, it still feels new because of the characters that you chose for that route. Playing these characters, so like playing this in auto mode, especially for that stage play, is really a really nice experience because it matches the OST and like the line reading of that play to like kind of be in sync with each other and give off like the intended energy level that the developers wanted you to have um, for that. So it kind of matches up in sync altogether. So I think it's just like it's a really nice like compact visual novel that has kind of high barrier of entry, but the way it captures the central themes of the Revue Starlight project is so interesting. So I think it's just like it's awesome. Like I need to read the rest of the two routes because I think there's like a hidden fifth route that'll open up once you see like the other the base four. That's my theory. That's kind of like what I've been up to in terms of like just what I've been exploring. It's been a packed week, and there's some other stuff I can't talk about, but I think for people who want to check out Revue Starlight, watch the anime and the movie first. They're both excellent, especially the movie, but the movie doesn't work without the anime. But like, it's no surprise that like the year that Revue Starlight movie aired, like for a lot of people, it's like easily like their best movie of the year, and I think it ranked really highly overall and like best movies of that year. It is such a very impactful and thoughtful movie. That's just like it's just simply incredible.
And with that, I think we've talked about all the games we're able to, or ready to, or allowed to talk about for this week. With one final follow up that is actually tied to an article up on the site, rpgsite.net. We had James and with a little bit of Chow talk last week about Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail. Of course, that released back in late June, early July, and it's been out for a little over a month now. But James was talking specifically about his time doing the Savage rating for Dawntrail, and I do know it was kind of funny because we saw in our Discord channel a bunch of congratulations going out to James earlier, and Adam was like, "Did James get a new job?" It's like, yeah, well, no, he cleared the Savage raid. So James, tell us about your time with the Savage raid, and also you wrote up your final thoughts on Dawntrail with that in the books.
Yeah, so like I was saying last week, I reported that I was working on the last fight of the tier, and I barely managed to get through and get a week one clear at literally the last moment, like on Monday, and the weekly reset is on Tuesdays, like at around like I think 1 a.m. on Tuesday. So I managed to get my clear in before weekly reset, which means that as long as I keep up re-clears, I can get my gear as quickly as possible, which realistically, no real rush, because the only reason you need gear after you clear the tier is for the ultimate raids, which won't come out for another couple of months, like probably the end of November or something like that. But yeah, I very, very briefly went into it in the review, but one of the main things with the raid series this time is that there's been a pretty relaxed DPS check. And one of the running theories is that they deliberately made it a lot more lax to begin with, but then there was like a last minute buff for a bunch of DPS jobs because Pictomancer was super strong. Instead of deciding to nerf Picto, they were like, we'll buff everything else. So a lot of jobs got a buff that was like at least 2 to 3% for their DPS, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up like quite a bit.
Yeah. We had mentioned a little bit about this last week when you're in the process of clearing, and we talked about like, what are the steps that Square Enix might take to address this? And like, no, they probably won't nerf other classes. They're just gonna have to kind of like live and learn for the next set of encounters and for the ultimate. So for the review itself, I know you've had a few different instances where you've been able to write about Final Fantasy 14, but this is your scored Dawntrail review, and scoring an MMO is always difficult. I've never had to do it, and I don't envy those that do. But just with the raid aside, and with the story completed, and with the other all the different factors that you have to kind of take into account when reviewing something that is a chapter of a long-running MMO, just your final statement on Dawntrail as it released last month.
Yeah, at least as far as the release goes. I said it as much in my review. It's for Dawntrail, it's especially hard because there's so much that's coming later on. That's always a thing with 14. But taking into account what is currently on the docket, it feels like Dawntrail is less of a like very confident like leap forward for the game and more like, okay, this is kind of just, I don't know the best way to put it. It feels like the developers themselves don't quite know what they want to do next and like going forward.
I mean, I think they even said the story was like, oh, we'll see if they like it or not. If they like it, then we'll continue this thing. If not, then
well, I hope they get the right message from it, because I think people are fine with like the setup for what's coming next. They just, a lot of people like Wukong. A lot of people don't. Some of the people that don't are transphobic,
I was gonna ask,
but some people, they have legitimate reasons for disliking how like she's kind of shoved down people's throats.
Yeah,
for those of us that aren't in there, like me who has not, I don't know what's in each Final Fantasy 14 expansion, but I have seen like fuck Wuklamat or whatever, or protect Wuklamat, depending on who you're talking to. Like, can you just tee it up, like explain like on 5, the digest version of like what is here?
So in previous 14 expansions, it would be pretty fair to say that the Warrior of Light was basically the main character. That is not the case for Dawntrail. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but because the Warrior of Light isn't the main character, there's a new character that is the main focus, and that is Wukong. The problem is that they didn't really manage to balance just right, and it's a lot of people just aren't super happy with how things have turned out with that. Like, okay, like there's multiple like story quests where the only objectives are a bunch of go talk to Wukong, go talk to Wukong, go talk to Wukong, and it's I generally like Wukong. I do like what they tried with her character, but I do understand the arguments where it's like they might have had too much of a focus on her instead of some of the other characters.
I think one of the streamer I watch said it like, if you're always shoved in my face, I am never gonna miss you. How can I miss somebody if you're always at my face? Or something like that. Like, yeah, I think that's a good reason to hate on her, but you know, I think it's just maybe it's a bit too overboard. I don't know. But speaking of which, I actually encountered somebody that plays Final Fantasy 14 yesterday. When I was out,
like in real life or something?
Yeah, in real life.
Okay,
I went there to a gacha, and they actually still had the collab up, and this other guy was there, and he was trying to go chase different stores to see where the collab is still up, and it's like, oh, you play 14 too, and we're like talking like the entire thing about how the new raids and all this thing, and it's like, do you do savage raiding? Do you do ultimates? Like, so this guy literally was asking me, really. So
Do you do ultimate raids, Chow?
no, I haven't. Like, I'm still bitter about my last savage raiding tier. I'm not sure when I'm gonna get back my spirits to play again. But
Obviously, you're not cut out for 14 rating, is what I'm hearing.
damn,
dang, dude.
Back to FGO.
I don't play FGO though.
No, never mind. Back to whatever you're playing.
Back to whatever you play.
Back to Grand Blue with you. The god.
That's what it was. Grand
Oh, yeah.
Blue. I get those Grand Blue, Fantasy, and FGO. I get confused in my head, and maybe that sounds asinine, but to me, they occupy the same
It's
space.
okay. Look, I can see it from outsiders of it. It's like it's all the same
Look,
shit to me. They're all scams either way.
Look, I got a nice mail letter in the mail telling me to carry them.
Mail letter.
Yes, whatever. To carry them in the latest raids in Grand Blue. I am truly needed in that game, but in these other games, maybe I'm just not cut out for it. Maybe I'm too old.
Maybe.
But yeah, reeling that spec in, James did write up his, I would say final, but we know with MMOs, it's never really final, but formal thoughts on Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, and those things are very hard to read, but of course, I mean, hard to read in terms of compartmentalizing them within the scope of that sort of game. But of course, if you listen to this podcast, we'll continue to have multiple opportunities to talk about Dawntrail as things, the post expansion launches go in, and of course, as we inevitably go into the next chapter of the game. With that, we'll go into news, and like I kind of said at the top of the podcast, we have a decent amount of announcements here. Some expected, some not. Some of these were teased, some of them are surprises. This is kind of really in whenever I organize, and when I say whenever the group organizes the podcast outline, we try to make heavy hitting headlines at the top, the more piecemeal rat race sort of things at the bottom. But sometimes there is a little bit of arbitrariness to it, and that's especially true here. So I just had to pick an order for these games to talk about. The first one that I have listed here to talk about is an announcement from the developers of Crosscode. Before I go any further, has anyone here played Crosscode?
Yeah, it's great. Fantastic.
I played like the beginning of it. I thought it was really good, but a lot of things got in the way, so I didn't touch it after that.
I have not played Crosscode, but I do know that it has strong critical reception and just like strong word of mouth in general. That is from the developer Radical Fish Games. That was their debut project. They've announced, and they had teased this before, but we finally have a reveal trailer for Alabaster Dawn. This is what they call a 2.5D, 2.5D pixel art action RPG slated to release in Steam Early Access next year. Alongside the announcement of the title, the artwork for Alabaster Dawn, they've, of course, revealed what they're calling a reveal trailer for the game. And I was actually watching this trailer earlier this morning in a chat with Adam, and I said, wow, this entire trailer is basically gameplay for a reveal trailer for a new indie project, which is pretty rare. Because a lot of indie projects, depending on the pedigree of the developer, might just be concept art or some ideas or a very small technical demo in terms of a vertical slice. But here, like Alabaster Dawn, this looks like it's really far along, but they're still planning to do early access. I know it's hard to judge based on a short 90-second trailer exactly how far along that is, but it's a very strong first showing. And it actually reminds me a bit of another upcoming game, that Sacrifier game, in terms of having a similar art style and perspective. But we share this trailer on our Facebook page and on our Twitter account, and I guess on Threads. And a lot of people really do like what they're seeing from the reveal, and of course because they've got the pedigree behind them with how well received Crosscode was. A lot of people kind of have a lot of faith and trust in the developer, who's also self-publishing. So kind of an exciting first start for a game that'll be clearly on our anticipated list for 2025.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the name is new. The project itself isn't. This has been going on internally at Radical Fish Games as Project Terra, and they've been talking about it for at least maybe 2.5 years now. So in terms of like we've seen this game before and the gameplay, it's just like they finally like officialized its name as Alabaster Dawn, which is yeah. So it's not like a brand new thing that came out of nowhere. To give context, because like when I showed my friend this, he's like, "Oh, is this Project Terra or a different project?" It's like, "Oh no, this project." Um, that's for people who do keep up with the developer stuff like that. So I think it looks really nice, especially in motion. Like I think some people were hoping for a more drastic change because you do still see a little bit of like crosscode roots under its presentation and its visual style. So I think some people wanted a more drastic, just change in terms of like the next thing they were working on. But I think ultimately it'll come down to like just hopefully it'll just be as as good as Crosscode, if not better. For some people that they say like Crosscode is their favorite game ever, and that they consider it like the best game they've ever played, because that game is just very very smooth to play and like its dungeon designs were just awesome. Just explore like that you had like a really really well thought out dungeons. So hoping for the best on this. Like some of the screenshots they showed off, like the growth chart and the affinity tree and so forth, shows that there's quite a bit of meat on the bones for this action RPG. And yeah, it's very exciting to see that like they're inching closer and closer to the release of their next project. Radical Fish is one hell of a studio, very very talented.
And yeah, the trailer does actually show, like I always harp on, like UI, like here's what the menus and like the tooltips actually look like. So we'll clearly have Alabaster Dawn circled on our calendar for 2025, even though it is an early release access. So we'll see exactly the details on that as we get closer to that getting a solidified early access release date. Here's another one that's kind of been teased up, and I know there has been a little bit of, I don't want to say news, but a little bit of like murmuring, scuttlebutt, whatever you want to call it, with the closing of. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I get this right. Arcane Austin was the one that closed down in May. Alongside
Yeah,
Trigo
Arcane
Gameworks.
Lyon in France is still up. They are making a Blade game.
So yeah, back in 2022, I covered a game called Weird West, which is from Wolfeye Studios, which has the former head of Arcane, Leon, founder of Arcane, actually, on it. And my one sentence summary of Weird West is that it had a really good vibe and a really interesting premise. I just really didn't like the multi-character gameplay. Basically, the game had 5 characters, and every single time you switch characters, you lost all your like item progress. Anyways, you can read my review up on the site for that. But Wolfeye Studios has announced, I won't say announced, but they've announced that they are working on a sophomore project. And they've said that they've been able to absorb some of the talent from the closing of Arcane Austin, which is, of course, really good to see for those developers after the failure, after the disappointment of Redfall. And they're working on a first-person action RPG. We don't have any other details other than that, other than, of course, they're talking about that this is a lot of the same pedigree that who worked on Prey 2017, worked on Dishonored. They're obviously kind of touting that as the pedigree for the new project. We do have a little bit of concept art here. The fact that it's first person, I think, is kind of like a good sell because it's what they've been known for. And Weird West, while it wasn't a terrible or bad game in any way, seemed like a little bit of departure of what they knew. It was an isometric game. It was more of a twin stick shooter sort of feel to it. So obviously this is a project that is a bit far away. We don't have any footage. We don't really have any screenshots or a project title, but they are working on a new first-person action RPG. It's interesting that they call it, though, an action RPG instead of avoiding I guess, the more clunky term of immersive sim. Some people really like immersive sim. Some people are like, well, what does that even mean? I don't know. But they're avoiding that terminology entirely. They're calling this first-person action RPG. But
Yeah,
obviously,
it's always funny when like whether you're announcing like you're announcing your next project and you tell them like what's the perspective of this game? Is you specify it's a third person game, it's a first person game. It's I always find it funny like you deliberately choose to point out the perspective of the game right away. so people know right away it's first person. Okay, you got it.
Well, I remember this might sound like ancient history now, but like for a long, long time, we had no idea that Cyberpunk 2077 was going to be a first-person game. And then in like 2018, when they had like a closed door, 2018, I don't remember the year, 2017,
Yeah, somewhere.
they had a closed door behind the scenes thing at E3 or whatever, and they're like, it's a first-person game. And people are like, shit, I hate first-person. Or they might just say like, well, darn, I hate first-person because like it gives me motion sickness, or lots of other reasons. That's so it's, and then we even had a similar discussion with talking about the Obsidian game Avowed, where they recently discussed that yes, this game will be playable in both first and third person. So I think it seems like that is something that a lot of players really key in on because they really do have a strong preference, and then they might be interested with the idea of a new project or really interested in what a studio is working on. And if they say, oh, this game is first person, that might decide whether or not they're going to pay that investment for that game as it continues to be developed.
It's a little bit of some comparison. It's like when Monolith Soft not too long ago this week was like they're putting out like a hiring notice, and then says, "Hey, we're hiring for a new RPG," and you don't know anything about this RPG except that it's directed by Tetsuya Takahashi. That's the only thing you know. It's an RPG. It's directed by Tetsuya Takahashi, and that's your recruiting banner right there. It's just that, to me that's like a funny way to like frame that, which is it's fine. They're both factual, and you know who's heading it, but it's like that. Those are the details. They don't say if it's like a turn-based RPG or action RPG or anything. It's like you just know it's RPG that's directed by this dude.
Well,
yeah,
not an RPG, not an RPG at all, but also like Machine Games for Microsoft now. It was working on Indiana Jones, and that was known for a long time. But Machine Games has made FPSs, the Wolfenstein games, and then like Indiana Jones, were like, this is going to be a first-person game, which might say like, well, that seems kind of like an interesting fit for a Indiana Jones game, but I guess that's what the studio knows. And then they finally showed gameplay, and it has like some third-person like ladder climbing and things like that. So it's just interesting, where it's like, well, of course, a certain studio like Arcane might have history making a certain style of game, but doesn't mean they're beholden to that. Like Weird West was a isometric game. Airship Syndicate made an isometric game with Darksiders Genesis. We talked about that last week. Kind of breaking from convention of the series. So,
were you gonna say something, Adam?
No, that was me. I was just gonna say that kind of reminds me of those poster ads of recruiting back for like the rebuild of Evangelion. It's like, now you get your credits in here, and then everyone look at the page like, this pay is crap. But for my chance to be like part of like that staff saying that I work with Hideki Anno, it's like that's like
you're like weighing options now. It's like I get paid shit, but I might see Anno. Maybe.
That's like how people like interpret those work posters.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of like the same thing. It's like, yeah, you get your chance to be part of this big project, but you're gonna be paid like shit or something.
Yeah, we're not saying that any of these other projects are gonna be paid like shit. I'm not saying that, but yeah.
No,
yeah.
It was like a scenario I was thinking of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
It's not quite the same story here, but it is interesting. Like when people dig through like job listings and things like that, sometimes you can glean some interesting things from them. So I'm not saying it's a completely worthless endeavor, but like sometimes the way that other websites that have more clickbaity headlines report on this, where it's like, oh wow, Monolith is working on an RPG. Yes, sort of thing.
That's crazy. What the
like,
fuck?
guess what? CD.
I'm trying to think of like how do you make that a clickbaity hit? It's like this big revered Japanese studio is working on a game you'd never expect. I'm like thinking of like a headline like that.
Or I mean, I can just kind of vision it, like where it's just like Nintendo is working on a new Zelda game, and it's like,
what? No, holy.
Like, yeah. Speaking of, we got a new trailer for the upcoming Echoes of Wisdom later. We should talk about. Looks really neat. But a few more indie game announcements here. Here's another one that I hadn't heard of, and I watched the trailer. It's got a very interesting premise. This is from a developer called Paper Sword Games. I'm not sure if we've covered anything else from them or if they're a new studio. Adam or Josh can chime in. And they have announced a turn-based RPG called Saveseeker. And the trailer here is a lot of gameplay, but also kind of a look in at the story premise of Saveseeker. It seems like there was a hero named Murray, I think Murray, who ended up having to be in a position where they made a decision that was going to harm the world, so that their child named, let me see if I can find this,
Emmer Edet.
Emmer, basically has to partner with their father's previous companion to stop them. So basically, you team up with your father's, or the main character's father, like former antagonists, in order to stop them. So when I first saw this and the premise wasn't clear to me, I was thinking like, oh, so this is after the adventure had happened, like Freeren? It's not really quite that, but the father had some sort of adventure, but at the end of it, they're going to make a decision that's kind of left nebulous in the trailer that was going to harm the world, and you'd want to prevent that from happening. So the art style and the premise kind of got a unique flavor to it. The trailer is pretty interesting. This is slated to release as a PC exclusive game, at least starting out in 2025. And I don't know, it just seems like an interesting premise for a game from a story front. From the gameplay that you can kind of glean from the trailer, it looks very traditional. I don't say that with any negative connotation, but your character lines, your teams line up on the left, the enemies line up on the right, and it's a turn-based RPG. So maybe more details to come there about specifically how those mechanics work in this game. But another indie project for next year to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I really dig the premise. I think the trailer does a really good job kind of selling you on like what makes it unique, and just having your party members consist of like past bosses that your father beat up is funny.
Here's one that we were kind of joking about before the podcast. Sorry that I'm laughing as I talk. We're getting another Fate remaster coming to release for PC. Actually, it's 4 Fate remasters. This is Fate Reawakened, which is a remaster of the original 4 Fate games. This is, of course, a different Fate series. They're released in like the mid 2000s, comprising of Fate Undiscovered Realms, Fate the Traitor of Soul, and Fate the Cursed King. I guess these are isometric dungeon RPGs that were released in like the mid 2000s that must have had like kind of like a cult following. I was not aware of these games. I look at kind of like the UI and the art, and I feel like maybe I ran into this back in like 2004. I don't quite remember. But they're being re-released on PC under developer Game Ago, and they were acquired by I guess the original developer was Wild Tangent, who was acquired by Game Ago, which is a German company, back in 2019, and now they're re-releasing some of these classic games on PC, which I think, even though I'm not familiar with these Fate games, is of course just a win for preservation, because someone might have grew up with these and like, oh crap, now they're going to come out on Steam next year, and I can like relive that nostalgia.
Well,
Like,
to be clear, the original 4 games are still on Steam.
oh, okay. So I was thinking like they'd be like, oh, you got to find a CD and plug in your old CD drive to get these to work. But so the original titles are available on Steam, but they're being remastered as like a 4-pack.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah,
And this is just an aside, but I was not familiar with these games either. And I got the press release on these, and it's like, relive the golden era, these old school RPGs that were pioneers of the action RPG genre. I'm like, oh, are these from like the 90s or something? And no, they're from the late 2000s, which is kind of just, I thought that was amusing. Like, I wouldn't really call that old school or golden era or pioneers of a genre, but
we're also old, Adam.
Yeah, I know.
Some people listening weren't born in 2005.
So yeah,
I saw a conversation that this is just like tangentially related, where some people were like talking about how Tim Walz apparently played Dreamcast. It's like, man, isn't that cool? He knows what 9999 was. And it's like, you idiot. That means we're old. We need to get a prostate exam.
Oh man.
So, but like with the original Fate, like all caps Fate. But from what I remember, I think on some like older OS versions, like it was like pre-installed with them, like how Space Cadet Pinball was. So I don't know exactly which OS versions, but like could very well be the original. Like,
probably Vista.
Yeah, it might have been Vista. So it could have been like definitely a person's first like RPG or 3D isometric RPG or whatever, like back in their maybe like childhood at this point, I guess.
So wait, are you telling me that if I had Windows Vista, this game comes pre-installed?
It might have been. I remember it being a free game on a PC OS.
Look, I used Windows Vista for like a good 4 years back at one point. It's like the most hated Windows version, and you're telling me this game existed all this time and I never know about it?
Maybe. I mean,
Actually, I found an article on, or not an article, it's just a Reddit headline. Fate, the game that you used to play pre-installed on Windows XP, is on Steam for
There you
40%
go.
off.
Okay, that
Like,
makes it even worse because I've used XP even more. And then you're telling me it's like, oh man, it was always there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like if it was only like a certain XP or like with a service pack. I'm not sure, but it's yeah. I just remember it was like pre-installed on some Windows OS version. I couldn't remember.
and obviously the remaster hopefully will be good too, because we kind of like. I'm going to try to draw this tangent into the conversation. Adam recently played Dragon Age Origins, which doesn't feel like that old of a game, but Adam had to jump through a lot of hoops just to get that to like run well on his computer, and not like play it at a high frame rate, but just to like make the UI work on a modern things like that. So having a reawakened or remastered version, in this case they call it reawakened version, if the studio does their what they should and make it so that it just plays nice with modern OSs, modern hardware, that's all in the service of preservation. You could say like, well, it already exists on Steam, but yeah, but is it convenient to download and actually play? Maybe or maybe not. In this particular case, I don't know, but we've like I also think of another game that I really wish would get kind of like that level of care. The original Knights of the Old Republic is terrible to play on Steam. Knights of the Old Republic 2 got a nice version where it got widescreen support and things like that. The first one never did. So even though I love that game, I've never replayed it on PC because the best way to play that is on like Xbox. What do you call it? Backwards compatibility if you have the original Xbox disc. But so hopefully for Fate Reawakened, for those that did grow up with this or played it pre-installed on their Windows XP machine, will be a nice way to revisit the game in a nice, convenient fashion. It is also coming to the Epic Game Store as well. Here's another indie title. This is from developer Playism. Playism had a little game show in the last week, and I'm not sure the entire slate of the things they covered there. This was the one thing that was pointed out as kind of relevant in our purview, of a new title called Haruka Beyond the Stars. This is a sci-fi RPG action RPG. When I first looked at this, it looked like it kind of had like a similar art style and perspective, kind of like Sandland. Of course, a very different aesthetic, but a similar sort of like flow of the camera motion and the viewpoint for it. And it has a really cute 2D art and like key art for it. The characters are kind of like a really charming and compelling. Uh, the trailer I watched, but it's a lot of the dialogue that's shown in it is in Japanese, and a lot of the trailer is just like a musical score that is overplayed over game cinematics, where like, the game cinematics are completely muted. So it's hard to glean exactly what the game is about, and maybe people can glean from it specifically in the press release here. But it's an interesting title that Playism is planning to release in 2026. So this might be one of the first titles that's clearly marked as a 2076 release date, officially by the developer.
Kind of funny that like there's sometimes QTEs coming up in like the combat like Xenoblade style. So it's like here's this button and there's this circle going down and you have to time limit the button in mid combat. Yeah, I mean, Playism put off a lot of great stuff like Haruka Beyond the Stars. Like this one's still farther out. This is like slated to release like in 2026, I believe. So it's still a lot of time till this game comes out. So it's kind of interesting to see that like they're trying it at a playable state, but very very early if there's like a 2026 title. But then they also showed off like obviously not exactly RPGs, but like they unveiled like a new pixel art side scrolling game called Nitro Express. That looks really cool. Has like a lot of guns in it. Side scrolling action. They showed off like a side scrolling roguelike, Million Depth. One that I'm really looking forward to is like the follow up to Samurai Bringer called Metal Bringer. Samurai Bringer was like this 3D isometric action RPG, not RPG but action game. It had like a voxel style type of art style, while Metal Bringer is an interesting art style that's like it's not exactly voxel, it's more like 3D pixelation almost. And it has like your pilot dude that can like suit up into like this giant robot for big isometric action. So like that's really really exciting because I really liked Samurai Bringer. So like this Playism has a lot of like it's publishing like a lot of like really interesting Japanese indie. They've really stepped it up. I think another one that I'm really looking forward to is Homura Hime as well. That's like a 3D action game. It's coming out like early next year, I believe.
I was trying to look in this press release here. They haven't explicitly have they explicitly said that they're planning for a worldwide release?
Or Playism titles usually get worldwide
I mean,
release.
all these press
Yeah.
releases and stream were in English, so
Okay, so it's kind of one of those things where nowadays that's like the default unless they say otherwise. But
I'm kind of
Cool.
surprised. The trailer that they have doesn't have much views, but they have a lot of game announcement in that video stream.
Oh, Playism has like this. The great and unfortunate thing about them is like they are involved in so much. They have like these indie live expos they do. Like this is on the shorter side. Like the live stream that they premiere these games is like an hour and a half. That's on the shorter side. These games, especially TGS, like they run for like 6 to 7 hours long of just like featuring a fucking shitload of indie games. Like it's just like nonstop. So it's like me and Adam aren't gonna be like, yeah, we're really gonna fucking sit through 6 to 7 hours.
It's like, of course not. They got better things to
do.
do with your time.
We might die in the process during it. So
yeah,
You know.
I just went to Playism's website and it just doesn't end. I'm just like tab. There's 16 more games. Tab. There's 16 more games.
Yeah.
things like that.
I mean, like,
And
it's
some,
like great on them.
and some of
you
them
know.
and some of them we have covered in certain respects, like Record of Lawless War, Deep Wonder Labyrinth, Nausea is there. The Good
Yeah.
Life.
I mean, a lot of their titles are relevant to us. So I think I'll be checking them out.
Drainius we talked about.
Hell yeah. Yeah,
I think the title I'm looking forward to is this one called Homura Hime. Was it?
yeah. I mentioned that just earlier. Yeah, Homura Hime
Mhm.
looks really really good because it's definitely it's basically like a 3D action game, but it has like that some of the like enemies are like fire off like shmup patterns. So like what you might expect for, like a boss fight in Nier, for example.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's I think I'll be hitting them up at PAX West, I believe. So
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
yeah, so I'm really really excited to like get hands on some of these titles and be able to speak with some of the people behind it.
So I think that kind of covers it for these indie game announcements that are slated for next year or later. So again, Alabaster Dawn, previously Project Terra from Out Fish Games. Wolfeye Studios is working on a first-person action RPG yet unnamed. Saveseeker coming out to PC next year, and then in 2026 we have got Haruka Beyond the Stars being published by Playism. So updates for some previously announced games as we kind of get into wind down this podcast. This one I kind of teased earlier. We did get a fuller new gameplay trailer for the previously announced The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This, of course, is slated to come out late next month. Is in the art style of the Link's Awakening remaster that launched earlier a few years ago on Switch. Is a game that explicitly stars Zelda as the protagonist, using the summoning of monsters and objects into the world. And then here we have a new trailer called Traversing Hyrule. And basically, it's like a 6-minute gameplay trailer showing some of the things we've seen before, a lot of the locations here. It's not really a story or a lore-focused trailer, though there are some interesting snippets here. Like, apparently, I think this might be the first game where you get both the river and the Lake Zoras interacting. And apparently, like, in that section of the world, like, they like actually come to, like, ahead of a conflict there. So it's kind of fun. It's not the first time they've been in the same game, but the first time that they've explicitly interacted.
I
The
forget who
trailer
it was, but someone was like, actually, Oracle of Ages had both types of Zoras.
Actually,
But they didn't like interact. Like the river
No, the
Zoras just
NPC
attack you.
Zoras are like the friendly ones, and then the old school Finn Zoras are just some enemies you fight in the water. So yeah.
Yeah. So this trailer, like talking about a gameplay trailer in a podcast like this, sometimes can feel difficult here. But this trailer just has made me more interested in the game, just because I remember when we talked about recently Tears of the Kingdom, and prior to that Breath of the Wild, like they're adding verbs to the game, and they kind of do some of the same thing here, where they talk a little bit more about the summoning mechanic that Zelda has in this game, the binding mechanic where you can basically bind yourself to an object that is moving, to like, if like for instance, one of the things it shows, like if a spider is crawling up a wall, you can bind to it to vertically move your character up that wall. Or if there is a giant boulder in the way, you can move it into a pit that's nearby to move it out of the way.
Ryan,
And then there was
I think I'm gonna actually you. I'm sorry.
okay, I'm actually
So bind is the one where you influence on objects movement. So like like the boulder, for example. But then the one for the object influencing Zelda's movement, that's reverse bond, not bind.
bind versus reverse bond.
Yeah.
And you have to combine those in order to do certain things. So yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Nintendo said it, not me. Okay, they're the one who said we should have these. We should have two different systems to describe these this thing.
Okay, yeah, I pulled up the trailer in another window, but yeah, bind is where you take an object and you move it. Reverse bond is an object is moving and you basically tether onto it. And they show a bunch of different examples for this. And there's just a lot of cool different environments here. And of course, I know different people have different opinions on that Link's Awakening very like toy box art style. But here I think it just fits really well. Also the Deku Scrub merchants, which I don't think we've seen those since
I don't
Majora's
think
Mask
it's
are
been a
back.
while.
And there's
Yeah.
like the UI that they show is very Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom inspired. There's a
Right.
system that they don't touch on very much where you use raw materials with the Deku merchants to make smoothies as a sort of consumable. So like a mini cooking mechanic similar to those two games. But just really neat. It shows that not only have they put Zelda in the protagonist role, but they've really kind of made it so it's not like a Zelda game you've played before with a lot of different new systems, verbs, like we said, mechanics, and seeing a lot of kind of familiar characters like the Lake Zoras or like the Deco Merchants in that toy box art style just seems really neat. Also, the horses that you can ride are so cute. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I want a little model of like cloaked Zelda on a horse. If they like, I actually have a keychain of the Link from like E3 2017 or whatever it was from the Link's Awakening remake. And if I could get a companion one with Zelda, I think that'd be really
they're
cute.
good. Yeah,
Mhm.
you should make a plushie of the horse.
I
That-
still
that
have
would be
that
also really good.
keychain. It's worn down so much over the years. It's kind of funny.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, good on like Nintendo's internal devs. Just
Mm.
they're so creative and so fucking good at what they do.
Mhm. And yep, that's slated to come out on September 26th. So about a month and a half from the time we're recording this. And it's the one September game I've got, even though it's late September, one September game I've got circled on my calendar.
I wish that was me.
What do you've got circled for September?
Kainoki Seki, same day.
Oh, yep. Mhm.
I'm still debating on getting that Dengeki limited edition, but the shipping price is 9,000 yen. I'm like, do I go this low?
I mean, there's never going to be a more favorable time for the yen to US, or I guess I don't know about Canadian.
It
Maybe-
rebounded a bit, but by the time late September rolls around, it's going to be right back where it was.
Mhm.
It just, yeah. Let's see, is it already back at 150? Because I'm pretty sure it is.
Don't
All right,
worry,
this next-
CD Japan will ship it and will charge you before it even ships.
There
So
you go.
you'll get that instant yen conversion.
This next game here that we're going to talk about, I'm going to have to lean on Josh and Adam. I've seen them talking about this game a fair bit in the Discord channel. This is for the First Berserker Khazan. This is from publisher Nexon, developed by Neopol. It is a Souls-like. I don't know much about it. I watched the gameplay trailer and I had a hard time just like deciphering it. I guess it's not really a gameplay trailer. It's more just a 15-minute gameplay demo here. And we've talked about in the past, we've talked about enough Souls-like from developers big and small that sometimes giving them all a fair look in here at a podcast can be kind of difficult to do. But the first Berserker Khazan here, we have a very large vertical slice of the gameplay here, showing traversal through like a snowy environment and then a boss fight at the end. The whole trailer, again, my pet peeve, doesn't show any UI. Like, I want to see the UI, damn it, but still, it shows a lot of the gameplay elements from both traversal and combat, and a little bit of itemization here. I did not watch there's also a little behind the scenes developer diary that I have not watched, but Josh or Adam, just with the first Berserker, that's hard to say in a row. First Berserker Kazan. Anything here when you're putting together the news on this that kind of stood out to you for this one?
This is kind of a weird one. Adam, do you want to be the one to give context? Because it's sort of
okay, I'll
weird.
give all the context. So we were
Okay.
actually reached out by the PR to like, hey, we're gonna post a blog post on this game talking about like the character of Khazan and Ozma, who are like characters from this game it's Dungeon Fighter Online or Dungeon and Fighter, depending on what region you live in. Two different names for the same game. And like we're gonna do this blog post. Do you want to write about it? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? And we did. We posted that, and it was kind of just like a small little blog post that was minorly interesting, but had like one new art and one new screenshot, so there wasn't a whole lot to go on. And then the very next day, there was like this 15 minutes of gameplay and a trailer that like, oh, we didn't know this is coming. I'm not sure why the PR didn't tell us that if they're going to tell us about the blog post. Anyways, that was a little strange. And then we had the chance to ask some questions like through email, so we did that. We've gotten answers back. We haven't published them yet.
I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, it was like the way that the PR is trying to like promote the game is a little bit strange. I don't know.
I don't know.
Like
We're gonna talk about
the
that. I
fact
have
that
no
they
idea.
they told us about the blog post, but not the like the gameplay trailer announcement stuff that has like a lot more detail. It's I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like you should have told us that. We should have got the questions a while ago rather than now. I don't. Whatever.
It looks good. I mean, like the visual style is really nice. They have this cell shaded style that's not too overbearing. It looks really good in motion. They only showed like the first 15 minutes of that gameplay, like the beginning of the game, basically, and it looks like It looks pretty responsive and looks pretty violent. The one thing I kind of laugh at is all the enemy animations in it, like the big golem thing, kind of like it does this whole. It's like its animations are really stiff in the way that like you parry its attack and then like it goes to like a down stance, like in a almost comedic manner. So like you parry its attack, and then like within like a half a second later, it like kneels down and like it covers its head almost. So like some of the anime animations are kind of comedic, probably unintentionally in that way. But there's like I'm interested to see like kind of more of the variations, like what different weapons you can have. It seems like you have like two different weapon types in each hand. Kind of hopefully that leads to like an interesting like maybe dual wield like a mechanic where you can like have different move sets depending on like what weapons you have in each of the hands. Um, it's hard to really say that like where this thing is gonna go because like even in like the behind the scenes like interview, it's like they're just like, yeah, we're making it so that the world is interesting even for like newcomers to Dungeon and Fighter, and really trying to like emphasize Kazan's like revenge and everything. And it's like that's cool, but like kind of wish there was like more substantial anything. And like you said, like UI would like if they included UI, we'd have more to chew on because UI tells us like so much more than just like raw gameplay alone. Because it's hard to say like, well, there'd be like a parry gauge, or like a stagger gauge. Like it's hard to say because you don't have anything to work with. So just like, all right, and then
You just see a character swinging their weapons at a beast, swinging their arms, and you're like, "Yep,
that's definitely
that's
a modern game. Yes,
yeah."
that's definitely a modern action game. Got it. Noted.
Mhm.
And like I was saying, like we did get responses to like kind of like they this mini interview that like the purpose of this interview was to provide any additional context that we may have had or any questions based on the blog post. But that blog post is already up, and this interview they gave us answers to is already like late to the party and like they didn't really answer anything. So it's like, okay, well, I could publish this interview as is and have like a totally nothing piece, frankly. Or I don't know. We're so transparent on this podcast. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, it's coming out next year. First Berserker Khazan to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And that's kind of the most. Honestly, with all this fucking blog post and trailer shit that they gave us, the most substantial thing that we got out of this is like a release year, which is next year.
Sorry, 1 second. I accidentally closed my podcast time.
It's okay.
No cheat. All right, next
right.
one is so also a YouTube channel that has been very active in the last week is Capcom's Monster Hunter YouTube channel for, of course, the upcoming Monster Hunter Wilds, also slated to release next year. Man, next year is not going to be any quieter, is it?
All right,
So,
Brian, are you ready for this segment to take half an hour?
I wasn't planning for it to take that long. What do you got in mind?
So we'll do a condensed version. Let's
Yeah, I know, I'm
properly
joking, I'm
introduce it
joking.
first. Properly
Ah,
introduce it.
I was actually going to say, so basically they've released a ton of trailers, starting with a basic mechanics and like a focus mode, which is this very specific mechanic trailer, and then they have like a bunch of 1 minute look-ins at of course, the weapons that you can choose from. About the time of recording, they've covered maybe I think 6 or 7 of them, and they've been doing like one a day. So within a week, I think they'll have an initial look-in of all the weapons, and I have not dug as deep to see like how does the longsword work different, how does the bow gun work different, how does the insect glaive, I think at the time of recording that's the most recent one up, work different. So I looked at the basic mechanics and the focus mode. So, and I had to kind of remind myself specifically the differences between World and Rise, about how these things work here. So a lot of the comparisons in my mind, I can't draw from comparisons to prior to World because that's where I jumped on the series. But they talk very specifically about weak spots and wounds and how focus mode can highlight those. And very similar to Iceborne's, like obviously the weak spots are known, but the clutch claw in Iceborne could create wounds, which would also do more damage. So depending on where you're attacking with your weapons, the natural weak spots of the enemy, and what weapon you're using, you can obviously exploit focus mode, weak spots, and wounds to more effectively fight the enemies. And I know for those that haven't played Monster Hunter, it might sound like, well, that sounds pretty well worn and kind of expected. But it does basically remind me far more of Iceborne than it does of
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rise.
weak points have
And
always
it's
been
worth
like in the
and
series
it's
for a
worth
while, but it's nice. It's nice to them standardizing
worth
the wound
to
mechanic
note.
from the get go instead of like putting it to a clutch claw
It's
mechanic.
it's worth to note that this is very clearly an extension of the clutch claw mechanic because if you deal enough damage to a weak point, it does also do this. The damage numbers have the same like overlay that like attacking a weakened or a tenderized part from Iceborne did, and that's something that Adam and I saw at Summer Game Fest. I noticed it because obviously I've put too much time into World, so I immediately was like, okay, so that's what's going on. So
So yeah, so it's nice for them to like just standardize it up front. Hopefully that doesn't mean like it's stupidly inflated HP numbers for it, but because I think that's kind of like the one thing that like left a bitter taste in Iceborne was how reliant that game's design was late game, to the point that it's like if you're not doing this to a monster, a fight will take a million years. But focus mode is interesting because like it'll allow for like say for like greatsword for example, you can actually like readjust like the positioning of like your swing. It's like instead of like firing it off and whiffing, you can actually like hey turn before you swing it toward the monster. It's like oh that's it. You can actually just like aim it right before you swing with focus mode.
I know, like those that have been Monster Hunter, it's like, wait, you can aim before you swing. It's like on Great Sword, it depends.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So that's it's pretty. I don't know. Focus mode is interesting. I'm really interested to see like how much it'll like play into like the cadence and flow overall, because like it does have the potential of having some weapons be complete like clear winners and losers, because with focus mode comes this new focus strike mechanic, and focus strike is basically adding in like this new move for weapons that'll deal bonus damage to weak points and wounds. So depending on like how that new move affects each weapon, there might be some clear winners and losers. Just like how the silkbind skills were in Rise. Like there are some silk skills that were really, really, really fucking good for some weapons in that game, and some were just like, it's okay. So we'll see. But like the Rise's influence does have some representation in Wilds. Like for example, the Hunting Horn in Wilds has the Silkbinder Shockwave from Rise already integrated into its moveset in Wilds. So
Which is good because I generally didn't like Hunting Horn and Rise, but I do think that's a cool move
Yeah.
to like borrow
that,
from.
that, that definitely one of the more like Hunting Horn was pretty divisive, but that like the Silkbinder one was one of the most beloved enhancements to Hunting Horn and Rise. So it's smart of them.
Also, not just the binder, but you can leave like little like echo points, and then
Yeah.
like whenever you play the horn, it will like cause an AoE blast from all of the echo points.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Like Hunting Horn is always one of the most interesting weapon videos to come out for Monster Hunter because it's one of the most inconsistent weapons in the series. Like they don't know what the identity of this weapon is sometimes.
Speaking of inconsistent weapons that they don't know the identity for,
Uh-huh.
holy shit, Gunlance Shads, we won.
Gun Lancer looks crazy in Wilds.
They gave it like an MMO rotation or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems way more mobile than than what I've previously seen of it.
I was already gonna play it, but it's like, man, shit, I might have to main this because holy crap.
There's also a lot of like interesting like implications too, because like with the basic mechanics video, they also some reporting out of like Summer Games Fest from Adam, you, and other outlets. Like this sacred mount allows you to switch between a primary and secondary weapon when you're mounted, so you can actually just change weapons on the get go without returning to camp or like some like home base mid hunt. You can actually just do it on the go during the fight as long as you're mounted. This is has a lot of interesting questions and implications because that means like let's say for example a monster has like different weaknesses and resistances like on a second phase, like you can swap to like another weapon that has like a different element to go deal so you can keep elemental advantage on your side on that, and also just like switching to a different weapon type altogether.
You know what that
mid-hunt.
means? We're gonna get an Elatrion again.
That's what I was thinking on that. So, there's so many design implications that you can like kind of start gathering together based on the mechanics video and like just the different weapons video that have come out, because some of these some of these are like kind of you've seen them before, like longsword changes, like they're a lot more subtle, and like it's just not like you still have the spirit gauge mechanic. Obviously, that's not.
I was actually gonna say that I watched Longsword and I didn't watch like Gunlance, and I played the Switchblade in Wilds and the Longsword in World. So those are the only two I really know. So I
Rise.
couldn't even Rise
Mhm.
and World. My bad. Wilds, Rise, World, all three were
Yeah, I get it.
my bad. But yeah, so like I couldn't even like if I had watched the Hunting Horn trailer, I would have not caught what was brought from which game just because I don't have experience with it.
Yeah. But like Insect
It'll-
Live has a lot of has some of like the UI elements from Rise, and some of the like the small tweaks on how like the bug behaves between Rise and Wilds. Like the definitely some Rise influence from that coming into Wilds from Rise. So it's and also like there's a brief point in like a previous trailer in Wilds where like it was shown like you fire off like a ranged weapon from the mount itself too. It's like, oh man, that's fucking crazy. Like
I
what are the
need to
limitations
know.
of that?
I need to know if that counts Gunlance shelling.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's hard to say at this point until they show more like go more into depth and like exactly like show a HUD from beginning to end.
They did at Summer Game Fest, but the problem is that it was very, very basic. It basically
Oh.
was just great sword, and I don't think they use, maybe if I'm misremembering, but I don't remember if they used the ranged weapon when they switched
Okay.
during the Adam, do you remember? Oh, Adam's not here at the moment. Never mind. Oop.
But yeah, it's gonna be, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what else they what they decide to show after the weapons. So after the weapons, then what's next?
Because they'll be done at the clip they're going. They'll be done with the weapons in a week.
Yeah.
We
Well,
can-
yeah, the whole point was is that Wilds is playable at Gamescom, so they're like leading up to like when
Oh, I got makes sense,
obviously
yeah.
people are going to be able to start talking about it.
So like, will the Gamescom demo actually have like weapon selection then?
It'll probably be like every single like Monster Hunter demo that has ever existed, where it's like you have access to every single weapon. You get to choose because it's going to be like a selection of 3 monster hunts, and probably we're going to figure out what the hell that one monster was in that other trailer that was in the sandstorm, and then it'll be like that's going to be one of the hunts in the Gamescom demo, along with the crocodile punching dude and the basic bearer thing, and that's probably
And-
going to be the 3 hunts. would be
Yeah,
my
and
ma-
aside
my
from
guess.
Gamescom, Capcom also announced that they also will be at PAX West in a public capacity as well. So the public wants to get first hands on with Wilds.
That'll be cool.
In the States, Yeah, I mean, since they're not taking appointments, it's gonna be probably media hour. I'm gonna have to find time to like sneak into there and like get play it for myself. I definitely want to. I don't know what I'm gonna choose if I somehow get there. Like maybe I'll just do Insect Glaive instead and go with that.
Do
or
Insect Glaive,
Hammer.
because when I'm at TGS, I'll do Gun Lance.
Okay, maybe I'll do Insect Glaive or Hammer if I get onto a demo kiosk. Yeah. Hey man, I also like. I'm just thinking like, what is the release date for this time? They're showing so much.
It's gonna be March. It's gonna be early next year.
I wanted to be like super early January.
Well,
That's
it
just me,
could
though.
be because World was late January.
Man, if it's a January release, I'm gonna be very hopefully.
I really hope it's not a January, February release or whatnot, because that means it will like coincide with the next 14 raid tier.
Well, that's a problem for 14 gamers and not me.
But yeah, it'll be really cool to follow up on Monster Hunter Wilds, especially if you get the chance to go hands-on at PAX.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm crossing my fingers. I'll try to sneak into there.
We have a couple more trailers and updates here before we go into dates. We have another trailer for the upcoming episode Aigis for Persona 3 Reload, which is slated to come out September 10th. This is just a trailer just introducing Metis, who is the character of, I keep wanting to say The Answer, but it's episode Aigis. And this trailer is, I don't know if there's really anything too surprising for those familiar with Persona 3 already, or even those that aren't. It's mostly introducing the character. Obviously, under this episode, the protagonist role is Aigis, and Metis serves as like a sisterly character to her.
Seems like they'll
Yeah.
implement like what was the thing called? It's not the social link. It's the thing for the mostly the guy characters in Reload that they added. I forgot what it's called.
Was it some kind of episode? I forgot what it
No,
was.
it's not like Hangouts or something. I forgot what it's called.
I forget the term for it. Yeah, it's basically that's the equivalent.
Yeah. They seem to be like doing that for Metis because did you see like the personality up or during the trailer? So there seems to be like social link esque episodes with her in episode I guess to obviously expand the character. And there's a character that's actually unpopular in the Persona 3 community. Obviously because she's introduced to the answer's already divisive, and Metis herself, not really that much of an interesting character in the original the answer that was part of Persona 3 Fest. So we'll see what they do with her in episode I guess. We'll see if they try to. I don't know. It's kind of bad to say like, will they try to improve her character? But that's kind of what it is if they're gonna do this. Yeah, that's September 10th. It's not too far away. That's actually just in a month as of this recording. Fuck. I I don't know. I'm just so. For me, it's just like it's cool that they're doing it. It just still seems so icky the way that they're rolling it out. If
It's like,
they
oh
somehow,
yeah, we need the fan support to make
if
the
they,
game, and then it's like, oh, it's already ready. Kind of thing, and you're like,
if
yeah,
if
my
they
ass.
somehow surprise everyone by making this episode, I guess like purchased separately on release date, it'll feel a little bit better. But it's like right now, just like I still feel like it's being mucked up by the way that like you gain access to this DLC, the expansion.
Don't worry, Twitter said this game is peak, so you better cough off that money.
No one's saying that. Whoever's saying that, they have a
That's
blue
on
check.
our Twitter, guys. That's
Wait, someone wait. Oh, I thought you said that like our account said it's peak. I'm like, there's no fucking way anyone on our account said it's peak.
Someone replied on that news
Then
post.
it's a blue check mark. Wants engagements so they can
I
get
saw one of our replies. I'll put it this way: on one of the tweets we put out this week, we got a random reply on Twitter saying, "Finally, Peak Fiction 2 is here." Do you know which tweet they're referring to?
paid.
Alabaster
Stay
Dawn.
night.
So I guess that means Crosscode is Peak Fiction 1.
Okay, I can understand. Like that first date. Some people really like crosscode. I get it.
We have another update for the upcoming Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake. Of course, we finally got details of this somewhat, not long dormant, but medium dormant game. It's going to be coming out late this year in November, and then followed up early next year with the 1 and 2 remake. This is a blog post on the Square Enix website. I think it was on the Square Enix
Actually,
website,
I
or
don't
was
even
it
know if it was a
press
blog
release?
post. Let me check. It might have
Which
just
is
been
just-
a media kit, which means it's literally a PDF file put up to the press site. Let's see. Is it
Yeah.
on the public like blog site? Checking right now.
They usually put it on the blog site. There's a media kit. Too.
Nope, there's
Usually.
nothing on the
Okay.
public site. So that means it's literally a PDF that you can go to the press site and download.
Nice, awesome.
I love Square Enix marketing. No, I'm serious though. When people criticize Square Enix marketing, this is what I think is like a big, I guess, strategy of theirs that I don't think is great. It's literally just like, here's a PDF that maybe outlets will cover, maybe like we do, but like I don't know.
You know what would even be like a smidge better? Fucking putting up a YouTube video of basically a PowerPoint presentation of this. With some accompanying BGM or whatever. That's it. That would be even.
And another part of the Square Enix marketing that also I don't think is great is they separate a lot of their posts into their different brands. And the Dragon Quest brand has a pretty okay following on Twitter. They have 86,000 followers under Dragon Quest. We have more than that. And we're RPG site ran by like 5 people. But there's the main Square Enix account has like 1 million, which makes sense. But the thing is they like to like separate their updates to their different brand sites. And yes, the main site will retweet some of them, but it's just I feel like that doesn't help.
Yeah, that really doesn't help.
What did they cover on this Dragon Quest III newsletter for those that have played the original?
Ortega, dude. It's
you get to have a voice for that guy. You get to hear who his English voice is.
Yeah, but it's basically the hero's father, Ortega. There's like some new scenes they're adding for this remake. So I guess
yes, so they previously said that Dragon Quest III Remake is going to have some new scenes, supervised by Hori that weren't in the original. And I don't know if it's exclusively this, but they basically said at least some, maybe all, of the new scenes are going to be related to Ortega, who is the protagonist's father, and basically like his quest, which is in the main game, in the original release, is kind of just like something that happened in history in the background. You don't really ever see it for yourself, but now it's like now you can finally get to experience it in a way.
Yeah. Sure, why not? I mean, it's kind of inoffensive, I guess. I mean, sure. I don't know if it really adds anything, but it also doesn't take away anything either. So
it's like the Han Solo movie. It's like, yeah, we already know everything about him. It's like, do you need to make a movie about this guy? Not really.
I mean,
Ortega's English voice's name is Dave Jones.
I kind of misread that. That was like what I was trying to say when I was reading the article. I was like, is this voiced by Davy Jones? I was like,
yeah, it's voiced by Davy Jones.
Yeah, that's what it says, I think.
Oh, he's Halsin from Baldur's Gate 3.
Cool. Who is he? Oh, Halsin? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, then they shut off, just some other locations, like what it looks like in the HD2D engine. They look nice. I mean, they are sure in this new art style, They look nice.
Yeah, no complaints about it right there. I still miss like the Golden Sun battle angle sort of thing, but whatever.
Yeah. That was actually kind of novel a little bit.
And then the final trailer that we'll talk about, I think it's the final trailer that we'll talk about this podcast, is that we got the final launch trailer for Black Myth Wukong, which releases in about a week and a half. Probably the biggest August release for us. And this trailer is basically all pure. I won't say pure gameplay, but it's a lot of gameplay for showing lots of different creatures, large and small, lots of different characters, lots of different weapons and ability types. It's a pretty good comprehensive overview if you haven't been following this game. And this is probably one of the earliest release dates that we knew for 2024, and they stuck to it. Like if you listen to a podcast back from late last year, or early this year, I'm probably on the record saying this is going to get delayed, and nope, it never was.
Has a good BGM in that trailer. I dig.
Well, you were halfway right. The Xbox version got delayed.
Oh, I see. I guess the main thing that, as someone who doesn't really know a lot about the source material, about Journey to the West and things like that, the main thing that I like to see here is just the variety of like the different sorts of enemy creatures and beasts that you see. It just looks like a lot of these games. Obviously, this is from a bigger product from a studio that's been working on this. When did we first get our first Unreal Engine 5 demo of this? It was like 4 or 5 years ago. But it just seems like there's a huge variety of locations, enemy styles, weapon styles. And you can just kind of see it through this trailer, just the amount of ground that they cover. So I am curious, like how much to unpack here there is, because it could
I wonder about like
potentially
the
be quite
hour
a
count,
lot.
like the average hour count of the game. I wonder how big this game is.
I think the thing that makes me sad is like he'll never get to like the part of the story where he has like all his companions, like Hawkeye, like the pig, Chewbacca guy,
Yeah.
like I kind of miss like some of like the stories, like when you watch like I don't know, like the old TV series about like the pig guy, for example. Like
There's a PS1 strategy RPG called Journey to the West, or
Sayuki, man,
Sayuki Journey to the
from
West.
Koei Tech. Well,
Yeah, there you
Koei,
go. That's what you want. You want a fucking remake of that.
man.
That'd be sick, actually.
You remember the opening song? Magic
Yeah,
Warrior,
yeah.
Son Goku.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. But look, I'm just saying that I'm kind of missing like some like the storylines from like the actual Journey to the West. So I don't think like this game would ever get into that, like about all their companionships and their journey and all that stuff.
Doesn't look like that.
yeah.
It's you playing monkey, hitting staff really hard on big things.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, you won't see like the strengths of like each of those characters of that. So it's just kind of sad for me. But
Yeah, I get it.
But obviously, we won't be talking about this one. I assume the embargo for this is release day, or if it's not been announced. But I think we'll talk about this one in 2 weeks. Can we say? I forget.
I don't think we can say.
Okay. We will be talking about this on a future podcast. There we go. Coming out on August 20th, of course. A few other dates that we'll go through here. Something that entered Steam Early Access earlier this week. This is Fields of Mistria. We covered this game, I think, last summer when it was announced. It's a farming sim that has music by Toby Fox from I'm blanking on the name of the game.
Deltarune.
Undertale. Yeah, Undertale and Deltarune. It's got a fun kind of like GBA style art with portraits that almost look like GBA style Fire Emblem. But yeah, it's a farming sim. It's still in early access. Just released on early access on August 5th. So it's available to play now if you're interested in trying it out. And they've also got a nice roadmap.
I missed the chance for a joke because I forgot the game's name. But when you said music from Toby Fox from that one game, I was so close to saying from Little Town Hero.
Oh,
I just didn't remember the game name in time.
Jesus Christ, dude. Why did you make me remember that game? Oh. Damn it.
I'm missing the context here. Should I Google
Little
this?
Town Hero is a pretty poor game made by Game Freak that released a couple of years ago that Josh reviewed, and I think you gave it like a 4 or something.
I don't remember.
And Toby Fox is the composer.
Yeah, I don't remember what I wrote for it. I don't know what score I gave it. I just totally forgot that game existed.
No, when I look at this, I remember this.
Oh, you gave it a 6.
Yeah, this one came and went. Yeah, that's not the worst. That's what I gave for request. So, but yeah, Fields of Mistria, early access farming sim / RPG, available to play on Steam right now. I kind of compartmentalize this with the consistent Hoyoverse updates, but Wuthering Waves, which is not Hoyoverse, it's Kuro Games. Version 1.2 is arriving in a few days, and it's adding characters, and there's a new festival event.
Let's fucking go. We're finally here. That's it. That's it, chat. I'm getting rid of Hoyoverse shit. It's Wuthering Waves. I'm overriding Wuthering Waves, dude.
Genshin never.
So I decided, all right, since we do the fucking Hoyoverse shit, right? Like I was like,
Now it's your turn.
I might as well start at least covering these because I actually played the fucking game. And Adam's like, yeah, that's ideally how we want to do these.
I still keep up with Honkai Star Rail. The new patch is fire. Like the story in the new event's fire. But yeah, someone talks about it because nobody cares about it anymore.
That's right. Just like Wuthering Waves.
Just like our channel now. Nobody talks about Honkai anymore. It's all about Senless Zone Zero. Now I'm just like,
I will say, as someone who has not touched any of those, the ones that still filter to like my social feed are Zenless Zone Zero, like fan art and stuff. Like that seems to be the vogue one. I know it's also the most recent one, and it's been out a little over a month. But
look, Josh, they have converted Justin Wong into a Zenless Zone Zero player.
Oh yeah, I saw. I was like, well, he's off in Saudi Arabia right now, so he can't play it for a while. Yeah, so version 1.2 of Wuthering Waves coming out August 15. This isn't I don't think it's adding a brand new region like version 1.1 did with like the big southern region island and that whole time stopping story. This seems to be like a more laid back, chill, like festival type event that has this event where like you're I guess helping to build a festival and like part of participating in this like base building thing will allow you to get a new free 5-star character, one of the new free limited 5-star characters being added to this patch. So you'll get one copy of them for free. Obviously, you'll be like, what's the
caveat of getting this?
No. What's the incentive of rolling for him when his banner comes out? Because I think the banner schedule is there's this new character Zhezhi, or sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, Chow, who is wearing glasses, has like pigtails, and she's she's a painter. Yeah, she's like a painter, and so far I think she's the first banner, first limited 5-star coming, and then the second one is Xiangli Yao, which is like a electric fist dude, has like a robot arm. He looks cool. You'll get one copy of him for free by participating in the event coming. And then, so even though you get one copy of him for free, you'll be like, oh, what's the incentive of rolling? Why even have a banner for him? It's like for people who want to like get duplicates to further enhance him. That's for them. He also has his signature weapon banner that comes up at the same time as he does, like for any other character. So that's the reason to go do his banner stuff as well, even if you get one copy of him for free, and so forth. The developer Kuro Games also released a recent developer letter for this game that'll finally add 120 FPS mode. This game in closed beta had 120 FPS as an option, but then they disabled it at the full release to like iron out some bugs and so forth. So that's for PC people like me. I definitely want to play this in 120 FPS, so that's cool to see. Also, one of the nice changes that you'll hear it a lot in like the Hoyoverse circles is there's a stamina energy system called wave plates in this game. You need to spend wave plates to get rewards from like when you're getting mats. When you're doing the weekly bosses, if you want their mats, you have to spend wave plates to get those mats. Now there's a way to like store excess wave plates. So let's say you don't want to play this game for a while, like for like 2 days or something. So, the part of the reason
I know exactly where you're coming from because that's the same system in Honkai Star Rail. Excessive energy is stored here and it caps out at like, was it 3,000? It will take like a month to max it. I think in Honkai. I'm not sure how long it'll take in Waves.
For Wuthering Waves, I think it's gonna like for 48 hours. I believe it'll take to max out. So it's not absurd number. So either way, so like usually at the current point of this game, your current wave plate cap, your energy cap is 240, and then you never want it to go to that cap because you're wasting, time that could be better spent of it refilling, basically. So you don't want it to cap because you want it to always be on the clock refilling. So you don't have to like waste items to like refill it because you might need those items in the future, stuff like that. So, instead of like having to check back in on this game every so amount of hours, like once a day, you can like just hang back for like 2 to 3 days now, and like once it reaches that 240 cap, it'll keep on storing more wave plates through wave plate crystals, and they're like basically just crystallizing excess wave plates that you're not using. So you can like use those at a later time when you feel like playing the game in a more extended session.
I think the most funniest thing is I don't think that feature is still in Genshin yet.
No way! I thought they did have that. What the fuck?
No, I
No
don't think it's in,
way!
I
There's
don't
no
think
way
it's in
to.
Genshin.
What?
Yeah,
That's
like the
crazy. If there's
best.
not.
Yeah, it was implemented in like Honkai Star Rail. That's one of the reasons why I hate Genshin these days. It's because like, oh, it's like why is like all these quality of life features like happens in Honkai Star Rail, but you don't like back implement it into Genshin, and you're like, oh, they're not made by the same team, but still you're part of the same parent company. Could you like share your ideas to like one to the other kind of thing, you know? But
That's crazy. I thought they already. I thought
no,
Genshin Unlock had that. I know it didn't launch with that, but I just didn't know they never added
no,
that.
they still haven't implemented it after like 4 years.
That's fucking insane. Okay. Well, I'm sorry.
Gets like
um,
zero quality of life because it makes so much money. So like they don't like implement anything other than out of necessity.
so we could say here for Wuthering, Genshin would never.
Yeah.
It's just. I mean, I don't know. It's still a fun game to play, so I still play it because it's still a fun game. Yeah. How's your time at Sword of Convalaria so far, Chow? I know you're talking about
Great
that.
time. I was so engrossed in like the story. I was like so mad about getting like the bad ending. It's not a bad ending. I think every ending is bittersweet in that game. It's like there's
Mm.
no perfect ending in it. It's like half the cast is dead by the end, and you're like, did I make the right choices? And like one of the characters even like curse at me. It's like I did all this for fucking nothing, basically. And you're like, damn, I really fucked up. And then you try to go back and change it. It's like, I feel like I still fucked up, you know. But that's like the perfect ending, apparently.
Damn, it's just like real life, Fuck. If I could
So
go
yeah,
back,
I was so engrossed with that story. That's why you like see my count times. Like, hey, it was like why did Chow like had like 30 hours in that one span of a week all of a sudden? You know, and that's what happened because the story was just very engaging for me when I did it.
yeah, I need to find time to go play and put more time to the single player whenever I have free time. Like I'm
I
not in
heard the
any
other routes
rush.
are just as interesting too. It's
Oh,
like I chose the was it the Iria route, and I
uh-huh.
feared that route was only implemented like just like recently. Yeah, like
Oh,
it was a
interesting.
major patch update. I felt like
Okay.
I felt like this is kind of like part of the normal story, but no,
Oh
it's
wow.
actually like newer.
Yeah, I'm doing the fucking daily login event to get the free 10 rolls though because of the 30 million download or whatever. No, it's not the
Damn,
30 million down. It's like what is the 3 million downloads campaign?
5. It's 5.
5. That's a pretty big number.
Yeah,
Five
it's a
million
huge
downloads.
number. But yeah,
Oh,
like the single player story aspect is probably the most engaging part of it. I don't really care about the gotcha elements because it's like playing Legresser. I feel like it has a lot of similar caveats as like the Legresser mobile game, which could be
mhm.
a chore when you get to really deep into it. That's what my presumption is from playing a lot of that game before. But there are lots of like better things, like how to handle like certain skins, like how you acquire them. Like at least it's not like the Aggressor mobile game. Do you remember how you like acquire one to scale, like the skins? How like they were
No,
like super limited, and it probably requires like $900 of spending to get those limited
Jesus
skins
Christ. Fuck that.
or something like that. And like
Yeah.
nobody has them unless you're like a extreme whale. But those like, and they're like, it's not pay to win. It's just like a cosmetic that's very limited. But at the same time, it's like you feel bad about missing out on these things, right? On like Aggressor mobile. At least that's kind of like my take in it. But yeah,
All I remember, my last memory of the Langrisser mobile game is like they have like really insane collabs.
they
Like
have Cold Steel collabs,
yeah,
and
they have but they're like their most recent was like Captain Commando. They're collabing with Captain
what?
Commando.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm not joking. But
Okay,
yeah,
dude.
I'll send
I
you an
thought they did
image.
like a Daybreak collab
They
recently.
did. I think they did. Yeah, I know they also do collab with Falcom stuff. But yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic. But yeah, I just wanted to know what you're doing in Candelaria, and I
Yeah,
was trying to.
the single player story mode is great. I tell you to highly at least finish it to kind of make your fair assessment of that game instead
Yeah,
of just looking at like the gotcha part and like, oh
yeah,
no, I hate gotcha games. Yeah, you can hate gotcha games, but at least judge it from the single player aspect and give it a fair shot from there, right?
yeah. It seems like it's maintaining a player base on Steam right now for like about almost 6,500 players. So like on Steam alone, it seems to be like it has its ups and downs. I've seen the player base count, but it still reaches like a peak of like 9,000 a day.
Then just a couple more late summer, early fall release dates here. Here's a game that Adam just put this news up right before we started recording. A turn-based mystery dungeon RPG. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Dragonero: The Rise of Draquir is going to be releasing on Steam in late September, on September 26th. Adam, can you give us like the one sentence summary of this mystery dungeon RPG?
It's very Italian.
I was not expecting that. Okay. Is it an Italian studio?
Okay, yeah, it's an Italian studio based from an Italian comic, from what I can tell. This little indie dungeonish, some procedural progression RPG. I didn't look at it too closely, but comes out next month.
So basically, if there was an RPG that like was from Asterix, you'd be like, it's very French,
Yeah.
or something like that. Okay. So yeah, I'm not familiar with the IP Dragonero, but it's getting a turn-based RPG on Steam next month. Here's a news story from Scott. Scott, who has joined the site a few years back, has had an interest in tabletop RPGs and been covering those on the site a little bit. It's not our focus, but we kind of dabble in it every once in a while, especially if they cross over with video game IPs that we're aware of. There is an Ys tabletop RPG, Ys the Age of Heroes, which is releasing on October 1st, and pre-orders will open up on September 10th. So I'm not really aware. I didn't know that a tabletop RPG was going to release for the Ys series, or if there's any precedent for that. But there's one coming out later this year.
I also saw one coming out for SMT Nocturne. Like, I saw a tweet about it like earlier this week.
I think that was a Kickstarter, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I saw that too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of them. Like there was the one for Divinity from Larian. When I was at Denver Fan Expo, there was a pretty big booth for the Fallout tabletop RPG, which makes sense because it's kind of vogue, that IP. So yeah, there's a lot of them. It's not really where I've only played D&D and Pathfinder and Lancer, but that's not where I've been in like a lot of interest in. But the fact that there's an East one, I don't know, seems like a fun little crossover of some potential markets for those interested in that style of RPG.
Speaking of tabletop RPGs too, like there's been like previews of Space Marine 2 that have been coming out this week. A lot of people, the allure of Space Marine is really really fun for them because like some of them have been collecting Warhammer models and like custom paint them. So a lot of the allure of Space Marine 2 coming out is like being able to put a lot of custom colors and like iconic colors throughout the Warhammer era into like that game.
That's coming out not too long, right? Like next month.
It's like next month. I do want to get a replay of the first one in. Somehow have time. But there's imagine when I could like make it 40-hour days and somehow not fall asleep during the 40-hour days. Get right on it.
And then lastly, this is not something we would normally cover for news, but it's pretty topical and I think is worth of a headline. Is that the physical editions of the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 Pixel Remaster, that collection, is getting a wider retail release for console versions in October. It's similar to what was previously, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, a Square Enix like limited edition. By the time it was announced, there was so limited pre-orders that people had to import it, and it was super hard to get a hold of, or you had to buy it secondhand.
I heard
And
this
it was
was
just
just
kind
like that. It's sold out like immediately as well.
Oh, really? The one that's coming out in October?
Yeah, I've heard it was like.
Yeah, so this new release, which they're calling the Anniversary Edition, it looks like it's the same thing as what released last year for Switch and PlayStation 4, only now it comes with a sticker set. With stickers. Anyways, this version is now available at other retailers, but not many as far as I can tell, and the Square Enix store also sold out again on this. It's just kind of like, it's like, this is your flagship franchise. This has to be the strategy, is to make it like
scarce.
Yeah, scarce, to like drive up demand for it. I actually saw that Video Games Plus, which is a pretty popular retailer, they're based in Canada, but they ship at least to the US. They were like, by the way, we had our second best sales day ever in our 30-year history, like this week. I wonder why. And it was because of the Final Fantasy, this Pixel Remaster, because they're one of the retailers that had it, and people bought it there. So, yeah,
It's like it's not an absolute disaster like the first time around, but it's still not great either. It's at least they're doing it again. That's all you can really say.
Again, it just kind of goes to like Square Enix. Why? Like your decisions are just head scratchers sometimes.
I mean,
We're not in the-
I mean, it's also probably just like you got to look at the graph of like just physical retail as a whole. So it's been going on a downward trend. It's getting weaker and weaker year over year. So it sucks, but also I feel like in 10 years, what does physical retail look like? Does it exist for games? I don't know.
And that's the last headline that I have here. So very
Yeah, you survived.
Right.
You're free.
You
yeah,
are free
but,
now.
yeah. So obviously, lots of Fate talk here on 2 different Fate series
That's
on the
a
podcast.
shame. Sorry for that.
But it happens. But yeah, we like we've kind of teased up with all the upcoming release dates. There's a lot of things coming up in the next handful of months that we're very excited about. Some that we can't wait to talk about, and some that will probably surprise us as we get into the late summer and early fall months. Like I said at the top of the podcast, you can find RPG Site online at rpgsite.net. We have the review up for Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail. You can join our Discord by hitting that link at the top of the homepage or discord.gg. You can find us on most social media platforms. Just search for RPG Site. You should be able to find us. We do have a YouTube channel. That's where a lot of these podcasts are posted. But wherever you listen to this podcast, if you can give us a comment, give us a rating, we like to see those. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. I'm not sure what we'll be talking about. Let's see. Let's one last check. Let's just look at the release calendar and see what's coming out.
What does the release calendar say?
I'm pulling it up. You can find the release calendar on rpgsite.net.
In less than 3 weeks, we get the new Famicom Detective Club.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I wonder if that's like the remake of the Cell-like game.
It's not. It's a totally different plot.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, and 2 days ago, at the time of recording, we had the releases of SteamWorld Heist 2 and Deathbound. We've talked about those games on the podcast. Next week, it looks like just El Rentaros Wandering, which we covered in earlier June.
You also didn't mention the big RPG release of this week.
Which one did I miss?
That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Isekai Chronicles.
Mhm.
Hmm?
I had to bring Junior about it.
Is Junior playing it?
I think Paul
No,
is
he-
actually.
Oh, Paul is. Oh, that seems like a good Paul game.
Yeah,
don't know
Paul is
anything about
actually.
that.
This is exactly what Paul would say. He's like, I love playing games that I know nothing about. He knows nothing about this. So he's like, I'm gonna review this slime game.
I watched the
Yeah.
anime and I read a lot of the manga. Does that count? But
I mean, that definitely counts. Why aren't you reviewing it?
Why are
I
you?
just don't like anime games. That's all.
It's like I hate. It's like I like everything else about this except video games. Fuck
No,
video
but
games.
seriously, this is like definitely a Paul game where he's like, I will definitely play this RPG based on an anime I've never played or I've never seen. So,
Chow is still psyching himself up for Fairy Tail 2.
Yeah, that's true.
Building up the energy for that. But yeah. Well, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you all next week. Until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care. We'll talk to y'all later.